You're unmuted.
Thank you. All right, 7 o'clock, Thursday, July 16th. I will call tonight's special Board of Finance meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Rock, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pretty full agenda, but I think the first few items can go fairly quickly. The item number 3 on the agenda is to hear from our health director, Mr. Sands Cleary, along with our communications director, Lisa Clear. If you guys want to come up to the podium, maybe, is that?
Lisa's going to take the lead on this one.
Okay, and so this item is, I'll read the first part of it. Whereas the town of Fairfield and the Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Governments, otherwise known as MetroCog, have been awarded a grant in the total of $5,000 from the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Active Transportation Microgrant Program for Fairfield's Safer Streets program. And whereas the grant money will be used for a public outreach and education campaign sponsored by the Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance to increase awareness, understanding, and safe use of the town's evolving transportation network. Now, therefore, be it resolved and that the first selectman be and hereby is authorized to accept said grant, expend said grant funds in accordance with the terms of the grant, and execute any and all required documents to effectuate said grant. This item also requires approval from the Board of Selectmen and the RTM. So, Ms. Claire, you have the floor.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I am so happy to be here to tell you that this is our second MetroCog micro grant for the Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance. As a reminder, the Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance is an internal working group of staff at Town Hall. It incorporates the police department, the fire department, our library, our schools, the health department, the social services youth social worker, and representatives from the First Select Person's office. The intent is to improve safety by communicating to our residents the purpose and benefits of what are our speed management programs and safe streets. Sometimes there's some confusion because there's a lot of conversation about complete streets and safe streets. There is an easy way to keep it straight. Complete Streets is a program that is nationwide, that involves infrastructure, changes to our roadways, that creates safe streets. Safe Streets, therefore, the Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance is a public outreach campaign in order to communicate to our residents what those street changes are, how they help. Sometimes people feel like complete streets are only for bikers and pedestrians because there's an emphasis on those crosswalks and bike lanes, but at the same time, it helps transportation for every user of the streets. So what our $5,000 is for is a 6-month campaign, and the goal is going to be to encourage more respectful travel behavior, but also educating about Vision Zero, which is the pledge this town signed in 2024 to eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries by 2034. Complete Streets and how the Department of Public Works is actually working to restructure the streets, and creating safer travel. That might mean speed reduction. It could include information about speed cameras, but primarily what it is brochures, video, social media, a new biking map that we're going to put together that has historical sites that you can visit on your bike, and short little things that are things like safety minutes, where you have a minute video with the police chief talking about some important concept. Each month for the next 6 months, starting in September, has its own theme, and the $5,000 will help to pay for those things. Any questions?
Awesome. Yeah. Ms. Ruggiero.
So I have a few questions on this. So when you're defining the difference between complete streets and safe streets, you said that this group is made up of, it didn't sound like various people from the community. It sounds like it's
not.
just people that
It is an internal working group.
for
Yes.
the town.
Yes.
Because there was an email that went out that you had sent to get people, there was, looking for people to join.
Yeah.
And I had written back that I would be interested, and I never heard anything about it.
I don't recall where that went, to be honest with you.
I imagine it must have gone somewhere, because I think Kevin and I had written back as
Right, and I think-
interested, and I never heard anything.
Bob did as well.
No, I was, yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
Bob was the
involved in-
first to respond, and then I think you guys both came in after that.
I
but
looked into it.
Were you contacted at all?
Yeah.
Why was I not
I
contacted?
participated.
I think
not
they
part
were
of it.
looking, they were
I'm not
looking
sure
for.
what you're referring to. Are you
So Bob,
thinking
were you
about,
contacted, Kevin?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think there was they were looking
One
for one
liaison.
person per board, and Bob had responded first, and I flipped that name.
And there have
So
been
what
several
is that
meetings.
part of, complete streets or safe streets?
nope, this is, Complete Streets is a Department of Public Works and engineering concepts that they work with to define things like you're seeing with the quick build programs across town right now, where we're looking at lane reductions. That's engineering and Department of Public Works. This is a public outreach education campaign that helps to explain that. I'm not sure where an invitation was extended to any board or any members. Our internal working group of Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance is not expanding beyond the few people that we have engaged, because we all have a direct impact on those things.
Yeah, Bob, do you recall the details of what that was about?
Well, it's an interdepartmental, as representatives from every department, and it's a consultant coming in, very
Who's looking at
similar.
Christine Brown.
I know what you're talking about. Okay, wait, I know what you're talking about. This is why there's confusion. We have a grant. It is called Safe Streets for All. It is in the amount of, I think, $350,000. There is an advisory group that was put together.
That's what this is, that's what I want.
That's what you're referring to.
And that's
If you
not
were
this.
invited,
Not this.
that is to be an advisory group to a consultant group that was hired to come in to do a safety action plan for the town that's really engineering and public works based. It's not a public outreach campaign. This is public outreach.
All right, so we have 3 different programs. This grant is for, sounds like, public outreach to educate people on whatever the theme of the month is.
It is a public outreach campaign to encourage people to change their travel behavior. We have been in existence since 2024, and we've already had a MetroCog micro grant. If you've seen the signs around town that says road safety starts with you, those were put up a year ago. Lots of people took them down over the winter, as they should have. That was part of our campaign. We have been in existence talking to our residents through social media, and we had an e-bike panel at the library. Has nothing to do with engineering. It's all education and conversation with our residents.
So it's not the cameras,
It is not the
and
cameras.
it's not the toilet plungers that have appeared all over the town.
I don't know anything about toilet plungers.
They look like toilet plungers that I've written in.
Oh, the street things.
Yes.
It's not the quick bills. This is,
Because they're horrible.
Well, part of what we're hoping to do is to educate people about what Complete Streets is, because there's change happening nationally around street safety, and it's driven by something called Vision Zero. And Vision Zero is a pledge that the town adopted in 2024. It is not even national, it's global. And all that Fairfield has been committed to through our Department of Public Works and our engineering department and our grants that we get where people come in to help prepare these plans for street changes, those are things designed to minimize crashes. Our campaign is simply to educate people, because just like you're confused and you're little like, what is this, and safe streets, and how come that's not Complete Streets? This is just a public outreach campaign. It's social media, it's video, it's brochures. It's trying to help clarify for people what the intent is behind these changes.
Well, I certainly love grants, so I mean, I'm in support of a grant because I want as much money as possible. I just
Absolutely.
can't figure out, hiding her hair of what's going on
Well, if
with
part of the use
all the
of this-
different initiatives here.
If part of the use of the funds is for public outreach and education, I imagine some of that would apply to clarifying for the
That's
town
exactly
difference
right.
between these different programs.
That's exactly right. We do understand that there are a lot of things happening in street infrastructure, and I'm not responsible for that. We have professionals that are entirely capable of making the changes to keep our streets safer. but our group works together to try to keep children and families safe and educated. So that's why, for one thing, we did was the e-bike panel that I mentioned, educating children and parents. We did it at the main library. We had about 50 people. We've handed out brochures on why you should slow down, what the impacts of crashes are. It's really entirely education.
No, that sounds good.
All right. Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, these different organizations, can we get a write-up about each one and they be together so that we all understand what they are? Because it's very confusing since they all have this word safe in it. Everything's safe this and safe alliances and all sorts of things.
I agree
And I'd
with
like to
you.
know what who's makes up those panels, what the purpose of it is, and just like a write-up about what they're trying to do. And how do they meet? Like some type of write-up about it? Because I'm not gonna remember this 5 minutes from now. It's all safe streets and safe alliances and, all this other stuff. Okay, couple of things. What are these brochures gonna consist of? What's the content gonna consist of?
Probably, we haven't designed them yet, and it's part of the conversations that we have when we meet to define and to brainstorm about what the best way that we use these resources are now that we have them. But I would anticipate it's probably going to be graphics showing things like center line hardening, line edging, lane reduction, crosswalk markings, things that you're beginning to see in town, as an example, on Mill Plain, where people, or on Old Post Road, those new line markings on the street, when, especially at Old Post Road, at first people were like, I don't know, what is that? Like, do I drive in this lane? How do I do that? So part of our outreach is to try to help people understand. So those brochures probably would be very visual.
Okay. Is any part of this gonna deal with the traffic that's been caused by all of this?
That's not my concern. That's engineering, that's Department of Public Works.
It's not.
They're in charge of traffic in town?
Well, I can tell you,
Is that your
I can't
representation that
impact
they're
traffic.
responsible for the traffic that's going on, that these decisions are made?
No, I can't, don't put words in my mouth. I cannot tell you that any of the changes have caused traffic. That's not my job.
You want to go for a ride one day? I'd love to take you down Mill Plain Road.
But I don't think that relates to this.
It does not relate to this grant.
Okay.
A lot of the work has been, for the last 6 months, 9 months, focused on e-bikes and e-scooters and educating families and our youth. Been working with the school district. Road safety, we've heard from residents, from this board. What can we do to make kids safer, streets safer from that perspective? There seems to be a general agreement, especially after we had this panel, that parents need assistance and kids don't know the basic rules of the road. Like, we send kids to Safety Town when they're going off to kindergarten to learn the rules of the road and how to ride their bike, and there seems to be a disconnect when they're now on mini motorcycles. So really looking at ways of partnering with the school district to help provide a resource to the community and especially to parents, just to better educate children what kind of helmet to wear if you're going to be riding an e-bike or an e-scooter. Kids are wearing a bike helmet. There's special helmets that you should be wearing if you're on an e-bike or an e-scooter. And there doesn't seem to be widespread understanding about this. So this group. That's been an issue that's been taking up a lot of time.
Are scooters, e-bikes, or these mini motorcycles, as you called them, or whatever you call them, going to be part of this brochure?
I think the brochure
This
is.
particular campaign is related to Complete Streets, so there's potential for that. The last campaign that we did, which was also 6 months in duration, was when we did the e-bike panel. We've been meeting with the middle school principals, talking about doing presentations to parents and kids. So our overall mission is not just Complete Streets. This grant will help us define some additional information, but our overall mission as a working group is all street kind of education. And as the first select person just said, it focuses very heavily on families and children.
Okay, because at 6:55 this evening, on my way here, driving down like Oldfield, where it's about to become whatever, 20 kids flew out of Roland Road onto the road, not caring about traffic. Everyone had to slam their brakes on, 20 of them. Kids riding, popping wheelies while they're on their motorized bicycles.
I saw it too.
Did you see that?
It's, without interrupting you, your whole focus should be on that.
100%.
It has
out
been a
of
great deal of it.
100%.
It is,
So dangerous.
I wish the state, I thought the state passed some legislation outlawing some of these things, but it is freaking out of control. And I would use a more harsh word if we weren't at a public meeting. It's, I almost ran somebody over the other day. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could not agree with you more, John. I mean, we're talking about public safety with all these speed cameras, and it's all great that the number of, we're all slowing down, but it's not controlling these kids, and there should be major enforcement by our police department on it. It should be major. I saw a presentation online by a surgeon who works in the emergency room. I think it was in Minnesota. And her warning sign was, school's out. I cannot tell you the damage being done by these electric bikes, the facial injuries that are coming in, broken arms, broken legs, broken ankles. But she said the facial and head injuries are the most concerning because some of them are causing brain injuries. And she's like, I've never seen anything like it or an increase as much as I've seen with this e-bike thing. So if we're really talking about safety, there should be a major commitment to it.
And there was
I
for
agree.
6 months,
Well,
right?
let me just say, the e-bike panel that we did had 2 emergency room physicians on the panel saying those exact same things that you just brought up. Pat Berry, who's here as deputy chief of the fire department, was very instrumental in bringing those people to the panel. He's been a very big proponent of making sure that people understand the fire dangers from these electric bikes for kids who are plugging them in, and we don't know, there's danger beyond being out on the street. It is primarily driven by, I think, probably people who don't understand that what they're giving to their children is the same as a motorcycle at the speeds that they're driving. It is a concern of the Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance. It may not be what I'm talking about right now for the complete streets, but it is an ongoing program for us. And in fact, one of the things we talked about doing is a certificate program where parents and children have to watch a video and actually have to show through a quiz that they have completed it in order to get a certificate that then allows them to ride their bike to school. There's some discussion now from Fairfield Public Schools about what that policy on e-bikes might be. So we have not concluded those conversations, but that's why schools are represented by Rachel Chapa, who sits on the Fairfield Safe Streets Alliance. It is a group of everybody who might have an impact in any way on keeping kids safe.
Right? Yeah,
I just
Amy.
want to add here, my son has one of these bicycles, and it's a modest one. It doesn't go that fast. There's speed restriction. He wants to get the one that goes 70 miles an hour.
Yep.
I'm saying no. It's been an ongoing fight in my house because his friends all have the bike. And all of the rules that we talked about how there was gonna be needing a license. We had conversations about this with the Board of Finance. There was gonna be education. There was gonna be enforcement, and people were gonna stop these kids on bicycles. They're not doing that. And they're not doing that, and the chief of police also said on Tuesday night at the meeting, they are not going after these kids. And the reason he's not going after these kids is because they're gonna take off and the kid's gonna crash, which makes sense. So, I mean, we definitely have, when we talk about having a speeding problem in the town, this is a much bigger issue in my opinion, because if you're one of the people that accidentally hit one of these kids on a bike, your life will never be the same. I mean, it would be, and even it could be 100% the kid's fault, but I would never be able to recover from that if I took a life.
So,
Very true.
Lisa, let me ask you a clarifying question. Obviously, we're all in favor of receiving funds that we can use for these purposes, but if the Alliance did decide that they didn't want to use it for public outreach and education related to complete streets, but redouble down on educating around these e-bikes and such, is that something that the Alliance can do, or is there a restriction on how these funds can be used?
No, there's not. We do have some flexibility If we say that we're doing videos and brochures, that's fine with them. The micro grants themselves are actually designed to promote bike and pedestrian safety. When San stands up and talks about his portion of these grants, it's specific to, I think, bicycles, is that right?
You're spoiling my thunder.
I know, sorry. So you want to join me and we can talk together. But yeah, I think that it is definitely an option for us to pivot and use these funds for the same methods, but with a different focus. If that's something that, with the first select person's agreement, we decide we want to do.
Okay. Well, I don't think we need to belabor the point. I think we're all supportive of receiving the funds and using them in an appropriate way. I think you heard the opinions here. I'll go around the table one more. I know you had your hand up, you had your hand up, but I do want to try and get to the vote and keep us moving.
I would just quickly dovetail off of what's been said here. There was one moment of clear unison on Tuesday night, and that's when somebody said, we've got to do something about these e-bikes, and the entire audience in unison clapped. And it was split otherwise, but that was the one moment of unity. My questions are more mechanical. Is this the first grant we've gotten for this?
This is the second.
Second, thank you. I want to just clarify that. Will any snail mail go out? I mean, $5,000 is not a lot to do snail mail.
Oh, it is not a lot. The mail costs would eat that up. Printing
That's what I
paper.
thought. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. And do we have other money to complement what you're doing besides the grant money, and what does that bucket look like?
Well, you know what? For the last campaign, we went out and got sponsorships. For instance, our street signs were completely donated by Minuteman Press, as well as a lot of the brochure printing and car magnets, as well as we had sponsorship from Penske Automotive. So definitely there are people in town who are willing to promote and to sponsor us. We also had bikes given away by both Cycledynamics and Trek Bikes. They were part of our bike education. So yes, there's always opportunity for us to ask our community to help support us to do more. And I think if we wanted to do some sort of mail campaign, if we felt like that might be effective, that probably would not be covered by this kind of money, but there might be another opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to Tuesday night, there are a subset of people in town who are not online, who are not mobile, who are not, consuming like this table might consume information, and they were calling out for snail mail, and I'm just bringing it up as, anecdotal to your efforts.
I thought about that, and I thought about ways to reach people who are not they're not the kind of people who are online and sending emails. We could potentially, as a group, go to the Bigelow Senior Center, do something there, ask Julie and Brenda Steele to put our information into their newsletters. There's so many opportunities within our own town. Our libraries get seniors. Our libraries have a lot of people who are not digital and not savvy in that way. That's why the librarian Scott Jarzombek sits on our alliance, because we use the libraries in that way. So I think you raise an excellent point. I think there's probably ways to reach those communities that aren't necessarily snail mail, but going out to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Oldmeyer?
Yeah, just a clarifying question, same one for Sands. I'm assuming that this expense, the $5,000, you hadn't budgeted for this campaign, and you're only able to do it because you know you're receiving the grant to do it, or have you
We would,
included the expense and the revenue in your current budget?
we don't have a budget because there's not a line item in the town budget for us. So everything that we do is really free. So it's social media and it's talking to people and it's, other than the printed materials that are donated, it's all things like that. I will say that, this isn't a corporation. I've worked for them before. I've had marketing budgets that are 3% of sales. This is the most challenging, but in some ways, most dynamic position I've ever had, because I have to be so creative in how I speak to people, but without a big budget. So grants like this are absolutely fabulous because it gives us just that much more reach.
So in each case, there are unplanned revenue, additional revenue budgeted for, to cover additional expenses.
These grants typically will go into a miscellaneous grant fund.
But they weren't budgeted. We didn't expect to get them.
Yeah.
So it's extra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
All bonus.
I think this
It is,
Mr. Meyer, sorry.
I just want, those grant funds, the money's spent there and it has no effect on the budget.
That is correct.
So it doesn't, it just comes in and it'll be expended right directly out. So it's nothing, so next year, it won't affect anybody's budget, right? Okay.
Jim's asking to be on.
Mr. Myers, did you have a comment?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, great.
Very clear.
All right, can I get a motion?
Yeah, you can put a jacket on, cover up that Notre Dame if you want. You look a little cold over there, Jim.
I'll move to.
Enough, season.
So we got a motion for Mr. Elwanger to put this on
Second.
to a vote. Second by Amy. All in favor of accepting this $5,000 grant? Unanimous, 9-0. Thank you. And that'll take us to item number 4. Thank you, Lisa.
You're very welcome, thank you.
We have Sands Cleary here. This is virtually an identical grant, so I'm.
If you want to waive the reading, I'm okay with that.
Waive the reading? Yeah, thank you. The only difference in the write-up is instead of for public outreach and education, it's for various reflective items distributed by the Fairfield Health Department. So, Mr. Cleary, take us through it.
Very simple. We're buying a bunch of reflective items. We're going to give them out at health fairs, the police's National Night Out, Trunk or Treat, other events like that we go to anyway. So we're going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of reflective items, spoke reflectors, reflective tape, extra reflectors, little blinking lights, and we're going to get those out to every child and adult. We'll have bands for walking at night, that you can hold on to. So just think reflectors.
Perfect. Love it.
I need one of those.
Mr. Walsh.
Have you thought about giving some of these reflective devices to the police department where if they saw somebody out at night that could not really be seen, has no light on, at least stop them, say, hey guys, can you just put this on your bike? I'm gonna give it to you right now.
No, Jim, we want all the credit at the health department.
Travel with them. You can travel with them if you want.
We're open for anything. We want to distribute these things to as many. We have envisions for a contest with the spoke reflectors to have kids, do a design and send pictures in. But yeah, we're going to give them out to anybody who's going to a public event or giving them out to people. We'll do anything and get those out. Try to get out thousands of reflectors this year.
Love it. Great. Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve? Mr. Matola, seconded by Mr. Stark. All in favor?
Sands, you should have brought give outs.
All right. Okay. So the next item on the agenda, item number 5, also, Mr. Perry will take us through this.
Please blame Attorney Pierce for the resolution on this one.
Yeah, the resolution's quite long, but it's different, so I will read it. Whereas the town of Fairfield is participating municipality in one or more national opioid litigation settlement agreements, and whereas the town has received opioid settlement proceeds in the total amount of $458,459.49, which amount is available for appropriation and expenditure for substance use disorder abatement infrastructure, programs, services, supports, and resources for prevention, treatment, and recovery, harm reduction, and other eligible opioid remediation uses permitted by the applicable settlement agreements and Connecticut opioid settlement requirements. And whereas the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM desire to authorize the appropriation for the $458,459.49 in opioid settlement funds received by the town. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Select Persons, Board of Finance, and the RTM of the town of Fairfield hereby approve and authorize the appropriation of opioid settlement funds received by the town to date in the amount of $458,459.49 for eligible opioid remediation, abatement, and substance abuse disorder-related purposes, including prevention, treatment, recovery, harm reduction, overdose prevention, and response, public education, community supports, and other activities, programs, services, support, resources, and expenditures permitted under the applicable opioid settlement agreements. But it further resolved that the first select person is authorized on behalf of the town to execute any and all agreements and other documents and to take all actions necessary or appropriate to implement this resolution. Here we go. So, can you take us through this?
Sure. So this is the total amount of opioid settlement funds received by the town to date. The town attorney has advised that we bring the total amount before the boards to get approval to appropriate these. This will enable, right now we have an opioid planning group internal with the town and Board of Ed and police and fire and health and library and social services. that are looking at how do we want to move forward. One of the ways we're going to be moving forward is with a needs assessment. So we've reached out for proposals for a needs assessment, and that needs assessment will go further guide what eventually may be an opioid task force made up of residents and citizens that will ultimately guide sort of the funding decisions related to this, to these funds going forward. Right now, very little of the funds have been spent. Several years ago, there was a public education campaign for $3,200, but that's the only things that have been spent so far. So we're looking to move forward with things such as, which other towns have done, leave behind kits for police and fire when they go to the scene. They can, and there's an overdose, they can leave behind a kit that contains naloxone and directions on treatment and how to seek it out if you're ready for treatment, where you can reach out to. We're going to develop our own internal naloxone training. We already have naloxone cabinets in several departments right now, giving out free naloxone to people. And we're looking at a program similar to what Norwalk is doing, is a mini grant program that will reach out to treatment providers and recovery specialists they can apply for funds to do those services for those in Fairfield that need them.
Excellent. And Mr.
No,
McCullough?
go ahead, yeah.
No, that's fine. I was just,
Just a couple things. Did we just get this amount of money? Like,
No.
We've had it for a while?
Since 2023, this has been building up, yeah.
Okay.
We had that one expenditure of $3,200 initially, and then, there's been some change in leadership in the town, and so now we're getting to a point where we're moving forward with putting a plan in place.
You may have touched on this a little bit. So like if we get a grant, we have to obviously account for how we spent the money in accordance with the grant requirements. What's going to be the oversight with respect to spending this kind of money? It's a lot of money.
So there's a state report that we have to submit every year. We submit a state report of what activities we conducted and funds we spent. And so that's put out every January, I believe. That report comes out and details what every town is doing with their opioid settlement funds.
And then one other question. Were we, meaning Fairfield, actually a party to the lawsuit, or was it the state of
Yes,
Connecticut?
we were. Back in 2021, the leadership at the time signed on to the agreement so that we could enable us to receive the funds.
All right, so we have to account for the money, you have to file reports with the state saying we're using these funds for the appropriate reasons. Okay, thank you.
great, yeah. Ms. Ruggiero?
Do we expect this amount to grow at all?
Yes.
Or is it?
This is the current balance. We expect there's several more lawsuits that are being worked out and settlement agreements in the future. Some settlements the companies are paying the funds up front, 18 years, the term is 18 years. Some of them are paying it front, some are paying 18 years, some are coming up with different schedules. So we expect to receive, hundreds of thousands of dollars more. This is where we are now. And, and we'll have to come back with another appropriation with funds that are raised above that.
So I guess I'm struggling with what is the ask from us right now? Is it just permission to start to use this money?
It's authorization.
Or set up a task force, or what are we
You
looking
have to
for?
authorize it. We're one of the
They can't
bodies that has to
spend it.
authorize the spending of this money.
But what is the actual spend you're gonna do? Set up a task force and determine the next steps? Like, are you coming back to us once you have your plan on how you're gonna spend the money and gonna let us know?
Yeah.
The money goes through the state, so we're reporting to the state, and the purview of how this funding is spent is by the first select person. Ms. Kupchik, when initial funds came in, had a program at Sacred Heart. It wasn't appropriated then. I don't know what guidance she was given at the time. Mr. Gerber was doing some research. When I became first select person, having served on Fairfield Cares and in that prevention work, it was a priority for me to start spending this money. I think that we all know that we're in crisis right now as a nation, the opioid crisis, and it seemed very irresponsible to be sitting on it.
Yeah.
So got this task force together, very appreciative, as Mr. Cleary stated, multiple stakeholders internally, and the needs assessment was one of the first steps. We couldn't move forward with that until we had the appropriation to spend the money. Looking for leave behind kits. It's just like a no-brainer. We can get those in the hands of police and fire. They already have some of these kits, but everyone was very excited and had ideas on things that we could take immediate action on. We appreciate that this is a larger community conversation. After we do the needs assessment, as Mr. Cleary alluded to, we're looking to have a more public included. We want people who have gone through treatment, who have lived experience, reaching out to our churches and community organizations to really make sure that we're addressing this crisis from multiple angles. And while we don't necessarily need to report out to the other boards, we would be coming back to you just to tell you how this money is being spent. Appreciates it's a large sum to appropriate without a detail of how it's being spent.
Yeah, especially if it's gonna continue to grow. I mean, it's already $500,000, so I would think you'd wanna get in as much input as possible.
And it went through the Board of Select Persons, and both select person approved it. It was obviously approved, but just having known people with lived experience and access to treatment, very often people are struggling and they don't have the financial means to access treatment. And this, through a grant program, is one potential source of ways we can help our community.
Thank you. Mr. Rock, and then I'll go to you, Jim.
Can you take me back to where the origin of the money is? I know it going through a couple bumps, but who's writing the first check that?
So this money comes from legal settlements with manufacturers and distributors of opioids. So this is a nationwide agreement, and so they.
How many? Like,
There's
hundreds?
I would say dozens of different companies, distributors, people like CVS and Walgreens and Purdue Pharma and others have all come down with these are billion-dollar agreements that have come to play. So that's the source of the funds. Comes down through the states. There's a framework that comes down to the states. Certain portion has to go to the localities for prevention efforts. We have within the agreement is what's called Exhibit E, which outlines the allowable uses for it. So we are only allowed to do those activities that are somewhat described in there, prevention, treatment, and so that's the pathway.
Okay. And then I know we're at almost $500,000 now. What do we think we're going to cap at?
So initially, they said it was going to be, the estimates for Fairfield were like $600,000 to $650,000, but there have been more lawsuits initiated since 2021 and prior, so that right now it's kind of a question mark. We know it's probably going to be at least that, but we think it has the potential to be more.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
So I've heard what you guys have said, but I just want to ask. So you as a first select woman can decide how all this money is spent?
I believe that per the statute and the guidance we've gotten from the state, that it's under the purview of the first select person to decide how the funds are expended. With, guidance of have it be appropriated by the appropriate town boards, with the guidance of really having community input and feedback.
Have you thought about putting together a committee that could assist you in making decisions like doctors, parents who've lost children, but like having not even a huge one, 5, 7 people that could make a recommendation to you or to any first select person? It seems like it's a lot of money. And obviously you're gonna have to I guess you don't have to, but you said you would present, which I think is a wise decision by you, to the town boards on a yearly basis on how the money's been spent. But it also seems to me that having you get an advisory board, in addition to taking all the comment from the public, which I 100% agree, knowing a number of families who have lost children to this horrible epidemic. But it seems to me you might be, at least to think about it. I can't tell you what to do.
No, absolutely. And as Mr. Cleary said, we have an internal working group, wanted to, the health director, police, fire, that are on the front lines of dealing with this epidemic right now. And just to kind of get the ball rolling, the community needs assessment will reach out to those people, but that is the plan, to have a more larger task force to be making these decisions. Medical providers, people with lived experience, parents, absolutely. And if you know of anybody who might be interested in serving, please reach out to me or Mr. Cleary offline.
Thank you. Mr. Stark.
How will the money be held? Will it be in the general fund?
It's in an account within the health department's budgeting system.
How will
Municipals.
it appear on our financial statement?
It's in one of the grant funds. It's not in the general fund.
Okay.
I imagine it's restricted.
It's
It does seem
restricted,
like
it's
an amount that
restricted.
could be difficult to spend for a town our size.
Are we allowed to invest that money to make, like, even a
It's in a,
basic
se- it's in
interest rate?
it's in a separate account right now.
Okay.
So we need to look at the timing of when the funds are going to be used, and we could possibly invest it. I need to look at the agreement.
Yeah, I just don't know whether it's allowed to be
Yeah, I don't-
invested or not, so.
And then what reporting could we expect on the allocation and expenditure of the funds?
Well, we can provide a report of expenditures, I don't know if it's quarterly or some periodically. We do, there are reports that go to the state, I
Yeah,
believe.
every January, you
So-
said, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's an annual report that's required by the state, that's produced by the state. I believe it comes out every January. We have to submit data, I think, in October. And then they produce a report that sort of outlines what everybody's doing throughout the state with their opioid settlement
so
funds.
maybe what we can ask is whenever, not to create more work, but when you create that report and issue it to, or submit it to the state, that at the next Board of Finance meeting, that it's just something that we receive and.
But as of now, $3,200, that's what's been spent.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so,
I don't know if anyone made a motion.
yeah,
Read it.
yeah, I read it.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Mr. Matola, Mr. Wall, okay. All in favor? 9-0, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so flying right along, the next item, we're going to hear from our capital projects manager, Eli Gazelle, along with acting fire chief Karen Dunn and deputy fire chiefs Pat Berry and Roger. He's not here. Okay. Okay. But this is to hear, consider, and act upon a reallocation of the American Rescue Plan Act funds per Exhibit A in the backup, which is on, for those following online, page 25. Starts on page 25 of the online backup. But Eli, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for the special meeting. I appreciate it. Sorry, I know it's summertime. This is kind of a two-topic item. The first one is just to give a brief update on where we are with the ARPA funds. At the top of the first page, the summary page, we've received approximately $24.8 million in ARPA. Since July 6th, we've spent $23.3 million, and what remains is approximately $1.5 million. That $1.5 million is made up of two big projects. If we go on to the next page, there's about $562,000 left to be paid for a fire department boat. We make payments depending on the progress of the build, so we are comfortable in ensuring that we're going to spend that money by the end of the year. And then the other $600,000, which is what we're here to talk about today, which is money that's going to be reallocated for a fire department Station 1 bathroom renovation project. So there is a chart on there that you'll see a yellow highlighted column. Those are all the accounts that we are asking to be reallocated. Some of them are just left over. There's 91 cents in one, there's $8 in another. The biggest one is the $168,000. That's simply because we did some drawings and we started to design that project. And then we did a cost benefit analysis, and it basically turned out our return on investment is not worth proceeding with the drawings. We'd be spending about $30 million that'll protect us from a 5-year storm. So we said, hold off on that. That's not worth our time at the moment, which is why we're asking to reallocate those funds. The project that we are going out and seeking all this, seeking about $489,000 to be reallocated to encompasses essentially 6 bathrooms, 1 big bathroom suite on the 2nd floor of Station 1, and one ADA bathroom on the first floor, also in Station 1. So we went out to bid for that project. The lowest bid was Diversity Construction with a total base bid of $539,000.
Okay.
Happy to open it up for questions.
Any questions? Ms. Ruggiero?
Yes, I have a few questions here. So when we look back on ARPA, you know, there was a lot of time and meetings on how we were gonna spend this money and make sure that everybody got their fair share. And it was supposed to be, you know, projects that were ready, and there was all kinds of stipulations, and I can't even imagine why we're having so many problems spending this money. It's actually embarrassing, because quite frankly, there's a million things that need to be done, and we can't figure out how to spend the money. So what I'd like to understand is, why are we taking the money from various, like this downtown resiliency, and that's 200 grand almost, and now giving it to the fire department? Like, how did this decision get made? That, is it just because they're ready to spend the money?
You mentioned
or-
that they decided, after doing the study, they decided that the cost-benefit analysis did not make sense to move forward with that project.
I understand, but why are we giving it to the fire department is my question.
That's what he's asking.
Well, the fire de-
What process did you go through to ask all the different departments on where this money can be spent? Like, how did this decision come about?
Sure. So there's two line items for the fire stations within ARPA. There's fire station renovation design, and there's fire station rehabilitation. So in speaking with the fire department, and I have the two chiefs here, it was brought to our attention that the bathrooms at Fire Station 1 are in severe need of renovation. They haven't been renovated since 1954. And the bathrooms are failing. And there's currently just one shower at Fire Station 1. And I'll let Chief Barry, if you want to give a little bit more. They have decontamination requirements within the fire stations. And so it was brought up to the capital projects team saying, hey, we need to bring this forward and do the renovation. And we said, okay, instead of asking for a bond resolution as an emergency, we said we have some ARPA funding that we would like to reallocate. And we brought that up to the first select person. And it was all in agreement that, okay, this is a project that we can, one, prioritize, and two, get done by the end of the year.
So I guess, can I just ask a few questions to make sure I understand the numbers here? There was a balance.
Did you have, I just, you want to?
I think it's also, just to your question about do we go to every department, we can't identify new projects at this stage.
That's a very, very important point. That, yes, thank you for that. I forgot about that. It's only the projects within ARPA that we can't add new ARPA projects at this point.
So because these projects were on the list, the money can be moved from one to another as long as it's on the list. Because the ARPA rules were it had to be encumbered by the end of last year and spent by the end of this year.
Correct.
But couldn't you just pick a project that's not on this list, but that's like a project that we're doing that has, you can't, like a capital project that we're
Wasn't
doing?
approved.
Wasn't approved by-
Wasn't
To be obligated by the end of 2020.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to get comfortable with the number. So it looks
We're not
like
alone in
from the
not spending
ARPA
it.
money, they had $103,664 remaining, correct?
Under the line 10, which is fire station rehabilitation, yes.
So that was ARPA money that was still there, correct?
Correct.
And then the amount of $303,200 was already given previously and agreed upon to the fire projects.
Correct.
Okay.
Under fire station renovation design.
All right, so it's the total of these little bits that are really just this bigger one that wasn't ready to go, but you're giving an additional, call it 200 grand to the fire.
Yeah, the 168 plus the sum of all their smaller accounts, yes, yes.
And we did a tour of the fire stations. Like 2 years ago now. What happened? I mean, I never heard anything. Like I went, spent a Saturday, met a lot of the gentlemen.
Yep.
We went there, we went through bathrooms, went up to the pool table. I mean, in Southport, like I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, so DPW, and I'll speak on behalf of James Ryan. Sorry, James, but they've been working very hard in trying to maintain these bathrooms over the last couple years. I mean, they are in horrible shape. And the last call that we got was the urinals, which are still the in-ground urinals, for the record. are clogged. You can't flush them anymore. And that pipe essentially will need to be replaced within the wall. And that means.
You've had 300,000 just sitting there. What have you guys been waiting for? Why wasn't that fixed already?
The 300,000 was for design. I can't spend that on construction. That's why I'm asking for the reallocation today.
To
move it from design to construction.
Right, along with some of these other small balances.
We started on preliminary designs with the architect.
So when we went and met with you guys, I'm gonna say 2 years ago, I don't know how long ago it was. Whatever happened? Was that to get the design phase going?
Correct. We met with the architects. We began preliminary designs on the fire stations. We came up with the conceptual ideas of what they're going to look like for diversified workforce and things like that. We started that planning phase.
So we have spent some money
Yeah.
on designing the fire station renovations, which are in the capital plan. So all the fire stations are within the capital plan, scattered across the next 8 years, I believe. So we only did conceptual plans, and instead of proceeding forward with some of those plans, the fire department came to us and said, wait, hold on, we would like to prioritize this project, instead of moving forward with some of those other plans, which are in the capital plan.
Because of a complete failure of the bathroom.
They said they
Oh,
can't.
it sounds like it's certainly necessary. I don't think that's a question, but you had a lot of things there, like you had like no separate quarters for women, and it was a real, like the Southport house was like falling down. But we don't own the building.
Still is.
so it was
That's a
all,
separate project.
A problem.
It's a
Yeah,
separate
that's a
project.
separate project, yeah.
This particular case, as we were working through that project, this is, I think, 5 months in the making, because this failed 5 months ago, and we have been trying to get this through the design phase of trying to come up with how we could fix this, and this is where we are right now.
Are you able to finish this? Because if we don't finish it, we lose the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole idea was to go out to bid before coming to you guys, so we are ready to go. The next.
Plumbers are on, they're coming.
Ready to go.
The next
Man set up.
RTM, well, the RTM meeting the RTM has to approve the authorization.
When is that happening?
That's happening at the end of this month. And so once we do that, we're at the next Board of Selectmen meeting to approve a contract, and we're off to go in construction.
Because if we don't spend this money, someone should be canned, because the fact that we can't spend this money and have
Part
to
of why
lose
we're
the
having
money.
a special meeting tonight because of this
I
item.
mean,
so that
you
we can
have to
get it
spend this
in front
money,
of
every
the
dime
RTM
should be
as well.
spent. You know? So hopefully, you guys gotta be ready to go.
The designs are done, it's set up for, and this is also something that was part of the overall project that we were gonna do for the rebuild. This is just putting this forward now, rather than doing it 5 years. So this won't be wasted, this is just for rescheduling this now, rather than doing this 4 years from now.
So the money was gonna come out of somewhere, right pocket, left pocket, you're using the ARPA money because you have something ready to go. Obviously, you didn't spend the time to go back to look at other projects that were in existence that might have needed more capital, because this is just an emergency situation. Is that what's going on, it sounds like?
It sounds like we did everything we wanted to do with ARPA.
Well, right, we
for the
couldn't
most
pick
part.
new, it had to be things that were already identified through
Was
ARPA.
paving one of them?
There is paving, it's line number
Wasn't
17.
paving one? I mean, you could have thrown money into paving just to make sure you spend it. That was our backup plan.
Ken?
I know, that's why I'm asking the question. It's not that they're all used up. Well, that's why I'm asking, like,
Yeah.
what process did we go through? But it sounds like this is an emergency situation, and it's right pocket, left pocket, meaning we gotta spend this money no matter what. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all a little frustrated with the way this is all gone and sprinkling it around. We should have just taken the entire amount. I mean, and I will say I voted for it, so, you know, whatever. But in hindsight, I will tell you early on, it didn't take much of a, you know. I think we missed a major opportunity. We just had taken the whole amount and thrown it at the sewer system. And we didn't, and it would have just been done. And we wouldn't have had a zillion meetings with a zillion boards on moving one thing to another and having 81 cents and having to reappropriate the 81 cents and $8.32. And when we had a known problem before us, and it should have just been thrown there. But that's 2020 hindsight. I do have just a couple of questions, Eli, in regards to, and I just want you to explain it because I did hear what you said about it, on the downtown resiliency, permeable surfacing, because, can you explain to me about what you mean by, are we still at risk on a 5-year storm, which seeing this revaluation, it comes along pretty fast, 5 years. Are the downtown merchants still at risk for the flooding that I saw probably 4 or 5 years ago, where, you know, all the community theater, all those businesses along the post road, and we're all flooded out? We had 1.5 feet, 2 feet of rain water that came down in a very short period of time and flooded out. Are they still at risk now of that same thing still happening?
I'm not sure. I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no. I'm not sure if they're still at risk. But in order to do this project or to do anything, not anything, but in order to do what this project was set out to do, the cost benefit analysis was just not feasible.
Okay. Because I think some of them were looking for relief, and I think one of the reasons why money was put this way was to try to relieve some of this. I know the putting the infiltrators in underneath the town green, the Sherman Green there, was a complete waste of money. It didn't do anything. From speaking to DPW, other than it tore up the beautiful grass, and now there's beautiful grass there again. But they didn't really have much of an effect.
Well, that's exactly the point of why we're trying to reallocate this, because there's not a lot of things that we can do that is actually going to help that area. Right now.
I just
yeah,
want to
of course.
understand it when those merchants ask about it, like why did we move the money and whatever, but okay, that's fine. I really don't have any other questions, and I know we got to spend the money, and we just need to be done with this whole ARPA thing, and hopefully never hear about it again.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. Can I get a motion to approve? From Mr. Penley, second from Ms. Ruggiero. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it.
Happy the guys are getting a bathroom.
Every ladies are too.
And the ladies.
I will invite you all over when they're done to use them.
Thank you. Nothing better than cleaning the bowl.
Let's just hope.
And I like your first.
Are you gonna name stalls after dignitaries and stuff?
We could.
You can name the
Board-
toilet
Board
after
of
me if you
Finance.
want.
Oh, my God.
Men's room.
It really is important, so I thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Amy Ruggiero toilet.
Guys, the meeting is deteriorating.
In honor of Amy.
Yeah.
Take their word.
Please do.
That'd be all right.
All right. We'll bring this back to order. All right, that takes us to item number 7 on the agenda, to hear a presentation from the Community and Economic Development Director and Plan and Zoning Director. We have Mr. Mark Barnhart and Ms. Emmeline Harrigan. We do not have online backup for this, but we will make sure that it is posted to the town website as additional backup, likely tomorrow. For those watching, we do have it available electronically. So, Mr. Barnhart, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope your phone is going well.
Thank you very much for having me. Again, for the record, Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development for the town. I'm joined by Emmeline Harrigan, our town planner. I thought we flipped a coin, I get to go first. So I'm going to start by providing just a brief overview. I usually come and do this around January.
Yeah.
That didn't work out for everyone's schedule, so I appreciate rescheduling this kind of mid-year.
Yeah, that's good.
Which provides me an opportunity to kind of catch up on where things are about halfway through the year. Calendar year, rather. So I'm going to start by providing just a brief overview of some macroeconomic trends that inform our work, some recent or planned development activity. Won't get into a lot of detail, but just cover a few major projects that we're monitoring. And discuss, then I'll discuss briefly some plans to conduct a parking study. We had a conversation with Planning and Zoning Commission, yeah, as did the Economic Development Commission around this topic. And then I know I had a couple questions regarding Housing Trust Fund, progress towards a moratorium, so I'll touch on that. Before I hand the baton off to my colleague and partner in crime here, I guess, Emmeline, who provide an update on the POCD, which was recently adopted, and some zoning regulation changes the commission is currently working their way through. So just a little bit, as you all know, perhaps you don't, but in addition to providing economic development work to help businesses prosper and grow here, support new business investment, We also oversee and manage the Community Development Block Grant Fund, a federal grant. I provide staff support to 4 boards and commissions, including the Economic Development Commission, Affordable Housing Committee, Fair Rent Commission, and the Arts Commission most recently. So we tend to be busy. We certainly appreciate that we work in a competitive landscape here, a marketplace where businesses have choices as to where to locate, where to invest, where to grow and expand their businesses. We think it's important then to distill what we believe to be our competitive edge or advantages into a positioning statement, which I've captured here. Obviously, we're very blessed to have a very highly educated, highly proficient and workforce. Certainly, the 2 universities nearby provide access to rising young talent. In addition to that, we're again blessed with our location along the I-95 corridor, providing proximity to New York, Boston markets, the Eastern Seaboard, Metro and North rail service, regional and international airports, about a half dozen within a couple hours drive. All of that in a nice package where we blend what you would find in typically larger communities in a suburban setting. So briefly, looking at our labor force, it's increased slightly, about 10th largest in the state, about 32,000 workers. But if you zoom out, you can tap into, for businesses, can tap into 250,000 workers within 25 minutes of our downtown. Obviously, this area is known for having preponderance of folks with management, finance, and IT expertise, and that continues to be the case. Unemployment rates are up from historic lows, but still remain low overall. Fairfield typically is lower than both state and the national averages in terms of unemployment.
Mark, what's the chart say? The 16% to 2%, what does that represent?
16% to 2%, where's that?
On your chart that you have, I see 16% and 2%. It's really not labeled. I'm trying to figure out what does that mean? Is that unemployment rates? What is that?
The left side is unemployment rate, and you'll see unemployment now is below, just below 6% overall. We're about back a quarter. For Fairfield, it's much lower than that. It's about 5%.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know.
It's a lagging indicator. I want to talk a little bit about our office market. Fairfield has typically performed better than Fairfield County as a whole. Other submarkets within the area, part of that is a factor of the size, relative small size of our marketplace. But this market, including Westport, tends to be a little bit more tight than the region as a whole. We're about 11% on office space. Some of that, we've seen some positive absorption here is related to not just lease-up activity, but there's been a conversion of some office space into for other uses, including residential. Certainly, that's taken place in other submarkets here.
Can you give me an example of that? Just one.
Sure.
One switch.
Well, I can't speak regionally, but in Fairfield, there was an application previously to convert 60 Katona Drive from Class C office space to residential. It was approved for 18 units of residential. There was a subsequent application that came in, was approved by Planning and Zoning for a conversion of that space for a Goddard School, which is currently under construction. And that's an important point, Dave, because not every building, not every office building is a good candidate for conversion for residential. Typically, you need a certain not just in terms of the size, but you need to have central corridors and that type of thing. Go ahead, Jim.
In regards to the trend that you have here, is the trend in regards to the total amount of inventory square footage wise that's available?
It's
or
vacancy.
is that the vacancy rate?
Vacancy, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any type of comparison about where the amount of total inventory, what that trend has been?
Total inventory overall?
Square footage of office market
In the county or just locally?
Well, in Fairfield, well, in the county or Fairfield, I'd just like to see, are
Yeah,
we going up or down?
we have definitely reduced our inventory. G is a perfectly good example. That was part of our, before, our total inventory for office was very close to what Westport looked like, about 1.3. G came out, it was converted to institutional use. So that's reflected in those numbers, for sure.
I guess the question I'm trying to figure out is, that seems like a very low number, the office market, like 730
Well,
square
again,
feet.
this is Class A or Class A and B. This is from Cushman and Wakefield. But my own analysis, which we do a quarterly space availability report, which includes all classes of office space, it's bigger than this, but it's roughly the same amount of available inventory in terms of vacancy rates.
Okay, so if it's not Class A or Class B, then it's not making your list, so we don't.
It's not making Cushman and Wakefield's report, so, yes.
So it's.
My inventory is bigger than that, yes, you're right.
Okay. What have you seen in your inventory in regards to vacancies?
It's gone down, it's consistent, otherwise I wouldn't use this slide.
Okay.
I think there was a question, if you look at all classes, so my office inventory is roughly double that.
Square footage wise?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Retail is about 1.4 million square feet. Retail vacancy is roughly we just completed our update, just under 7%. We have a couple notable vacancies right now, Bed Bath & Beyond, Rite Aid. But outside of that, there's little blocks of space here and there. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, for the declining vacancy, are you saying, I think what you're saying is what's happening is you have vacant places that have been converted, and that's what's driving the vacancy rate down?
Not in Fairfield's,
Not
for
in
sure. With the exception, as Jim pointed out, in my response to his question, G was taken out of that office, that Class A office space, that did reflect in these numbers, if you go back a few years. But, that's a trend that we see countywide, where you do see in Trumbull, for example, in Norwalk, you're seeing some of those spaces being converted for other uses.
Okay.
Okay.
So just looking at commercial permits activity, last year we had a banner year in terms of permits being issued, over $130 million roughly. And, we're not going to see that same level of activity this year. That's fairly typical in terms of you look at the trend over time. But I will note that almost 90% of that activity took place after July 1. So we had a lot of applications coming in for building permits towards the end of the year for big projects. That phenomenon will probably repeat itself a little bit this year. There's a couple of projects that we're closely monitoring, 730, 750 Commerce Drive, for example. Trademark 3, I guess we're calling it, 90-unit mixed-use development there on the corner. They're just about to demolish those buildings. They'll be coming in for a building permit before the end of the year. That's a pretty substantial project. There's a few others in that same realm. So I would expect that to be at least double that by the end of the year.
Off the top of your head, do you know who the demolition was in 2020? It's fairly significant green there.
No, but I can go back and look.
I'm just curious.
In terms of year-to-date activity, some of the more significant ones include fit up for HEI Resorts and Hotels, which relocated from Merritt 7 in Norwalk to the Fairfield Center building in downtown Fairfield. It's their headquarters. HEI is a leading privately held hospitality investment and management company that have roughly 100 resorts and hotels under management. So we're very happy to have them there. Sikorsky Credit Union will be hopefully celebrating a grand opening event within the next few weeks for their renovation of the old TD Bank branch downtown. As I mentioned, the Goddard School renovation at 60 Cantona Drive. There's another Goddard School that's currently will be before the Planning and Zoning Commission shortly for a location in Southport. Different operator, but similar. We find a lot of need for early childhood or daycare type facilities. I think it bears repeating that we don't have a lot of area that's zoned for commercial uses in town, so I think this picture does sum it up nicely. It's pretty much, the commercial area is pretty much along the Post Road corridor as well as the Black Rock Turnpike spine, where we find most of our commercial. We have a couple pockets of neighborhood design business in Greenfield Hills, Southport, Stratfield, et cetera. So I think I'm sorry.
What is the legend? What does that DR mean?
DRD is design resident. I mean, that's the research designation, correct?
I think she's pointing to.
DR, like this orange area?
Yeah, that is
Former
that is the research design old designation.
So that's now.
That's now part of Sacred Hearts West Campus. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh?
So just because it's zoned for that doesn't necessarily mean it's being used for commercial use either.
Why am I not seeing anything all along Black Rock Turnpike?
You're seeing it down, you're seeing it on the blue,
Right here?
yeah. It's coming up the spine.
That's Black Rock Turnpike?
Yes. Courtesy of my friends in Planning and Zoning. So I think because we don't have a lot of area that's zoned for commercial applications and use, it does put some onus on looking at ways in which we can maximize the development potential and yield for those properties that are zoned for that use. And so we do look at, impact, fiscal impact of some of these developments. We've done an evaluation across different types of category of uses, different classes, whether it's office, retail, or residential, mixed use, just to give you a sense as to what these things pencil out at. So I shared that with you. That's, I think, part of your report. This information is also posted online so people can review it as well. For the residential projects, again, larger mixed-use residential projects, we've seen a number of school-aged children per unit relatively low, in keeping with our estimates. That stayed pretty much constant over the 10 years we've been tracking it with thanks to the Board of Ed. So again, these things do pencil out. They're treated and managed as commercial assets in terms of residential properties, and they do provide a positive fiscal benefit to the town. So I wanted to just cover briefly a couple of sites. I've covered these in the past, but just provide a quick update. First, we used to call it Fairfield Metro, and now it's the Fairfield Black Rock train station. The project's been now renamed Crossings at Fairfield, 219 Ash Creek Boulevard. It's almost a 24-acre site. This was purchased by AMZAC Accurate, operating under May Fairfield back in 2022. They went through a concept review and actually started construction on building number 4, which has since been completed. Along the way, Accurate Builders and Developers, the development piece, the development arm of May Fairfield, ran into some issues in terms of their ability to perform. AMZAC, the equity partner, executed a paper foreclosure, bought them out essentially, completed the building number 4, the 71 units that are currently there today. I think if they had their druthers, they'd probably do it differently. They've since come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission with an updated revised master plan. This was originally approved a while back in 2020 for 357 residential units as well as a hotel and some ancillary retail and office space. In the most recent iteration that was shared with the commission, AMZAC was proposing a 1.4 million square foot development encompassing 676 units, 160 key hotel, along with ancillary retail and office space. Again, they still need to make a formal application to the commission. We wouldn't anticipate that kind of towards the end of the year or perhaps early next at this point.
Do you know what the occupancy is for a building?
The occupancy, I just checked, we do this every 6 months, so it's about 8% vacant right now in 71. So six of the apartments. We've been doing that for all of our larger multifamily, just to track vacancy, to see what the absorption is.
So would that be consistent with trademark and warranty?
It varies, but overall, it's about 5%, which is, what they typically pencil out as.
5% vacancy for the entire town on multi?
No, 5% for the larger multifamily developments that we're tracking. Yeah, we do a survey every 6 months. It's going as low as 2 to 3%. I think the state, when they did a market analysis, referenced about 3% vacancy. It's a little, that's really tight, but again, timing and seasonality to it a little bit, depending on when we do the survey, but we've typically found around 5%.
What's the vacancy rate for residential for the whole town?
Whole town?
Yeah. You guys keep track of that for all the properties?
All properties?
single
No.
family?
No.
Not single-family houses, multi-use, dwelling units, not two-family houses.
Well,
Residents
what
or
we've
above.
focused on, Jim, is we've looked at vacancy for the larger, like 20 units and above.
Okay.
So that's around 5%. So,
Have you seen that be ticking up at all?
no.
As you've seen going down?
It has gone up this last half a year. Again, we don't have a lot of history behind it. We've done it the last couple of years. It's been around 5% overall, but we do see sometimes it's been as low as 3%. There definitely is differences in terms of where, units are. 3-bedroom units, for example, 78 Umpqua Place was a laggard for a while. They couldn't lease those. They had a very high number on them, and there wasn't really a lot of amenities in that particular development, so people weren't willing to pay the price. But, they didn't have a lot of 3-bedrooms within it.
Is that that?
Yes, yeah. And then there's some developments that aren't in as good a spot, I guess I would say, as others. So certainly the area we've seen with Trademark and Alto, Anchorage, for example, those projects that have a lot of amenities to offer their tenants, close to transit, tend to have lower vacancy rates than, for example, Park Avenue, which took a while on lease up, longer than they anticipated. So it very much depends on somewhat geography and where those units are located, for sure.
Do you monitor like rental rates for these units to see whether they're going up, down, staying the same?
Yes.
And how's that been going?
We haven't seen them go down, so the pricing is still up there. And, I think as more inventory comes online, I would expect that to come down a little bit, to moderate pricing a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know, the ones on Commerce Drive, they're like advertising like all these special benefits you get, 3 months
Certainly,
free
yeah,
rent.
certainly
I
71.
like that, that was never there before.
Yeah, certainly they are offering more incentives to lease up. I know the one you're talking about, for sure.
Just a question, so the crossings, this was the original plan that we're looking at here?
Well, this is building number 4 that was currently built. There was, the top aerial view was just after we completed the construction of the train station, remediation of the site. You can see the conservation easement area very clearly, as well as the development pad for future development in the foreground, or background rather. There's a little promenade there. It's for retail use. And the area that is different coloration on the inside of the curve is the location of the proposed hotel in the parking lot itself, so.
The bump out here that says, I think, 1.2 something acres,
Yes.
that's where the hotel's gonna go?
No, it's on the bump out, I think you're referring to is the retail, what they call the retail pavilion or promenade. But I can certainly send you the link to the planning and zoning. They posted the revised master plan of development on their website, and that would probably provide a better point of reference at this point.
You had mentioned something about it going from 357 residential units to a much bigger number.
676 is being proposed, yes.
676 residential units,
Yes.
and that they're still going to have the hotel?
Yes. Again, it's presently a proposal, needs to go
But
before
what is this
the Planning and
concept
Zoning
on
Commission.
6.9? It already went in front of TPZ, or?
Just as an informal concept review. So we allow for a pre-application to provide the commission an opportunity to provide feedback to the applicants so they understand, what issues or concerns they should address as part of their formal application.
Was, without me, was one of the concerns, I don't know if this is accurate or not, is 676 units, is that a concern to anybody? Is that too
No.
much or too little, or?
Well, again.
It seems like a lot to me, but what do I know?
So this site, it is good to remember that this site was originally proposed and approved for over 2 million square feet of new office
Yeah,
construction.
I
And
remember.
the traffic improvements in the area were based on that 2 million square foot of construction. So, obviously, that was 3 decades ago. The office market isn't what it wasn't that great then, certainly not great now. It was approved and considered for in terms of the infrastructure, that area to support much larger development around the transit.
Sorry,
around
Amy.
train station.
Oh, no. It's just interesting, because right across the street is where they're having those, 3 months free, right? It's right there.
Well, again, I think depending on how you position the asset in terms of what you're offering folks can make a big difference. So I don't see any lack of investor interest here in terms of or demand for new housing construction. In fact, this is it's still we're getting a lot of interest from folks looking to do this type of development in the area.
And this probably is the wrong way to characterize it, is what they're proposing more high-end type of
Yeah, I
residential?
would term it that way, yes. Yeah, the one that they built doesn't have really any amenities at all. It might have an indoor gym, but that's pretty much it. So it does not compare favorably to some other options within that same general area. So I think that's something that they will address going forward.
Attracting people who are younger professionals, retirees.
And again, I think it's also important, we've been working on this particular development site for
Long time.
a long time.
Ken
right?
Flato days, I remember.
Correct. And so development plans, they need to be a little bit flexible as the market further develops. I'm not seeing any change in terms of lack of demand for housing construction at this point in time. But, things can shift. So we need to be responsive to that. Nothing gets built kind of like overnight here. So there is time, it's part of a overall master plan of development that they'll be proposing. And, I know that the concern from the commission previously was we want to make sure that this is a mixed-use development. There's a commercial component with this. Hotel is very important to the community. So I think, again, we're still not even there yet in terms of talking about project phasing and sequencing.
Mr. Walsh.
It has been like 3 decades, Mark, and you and I are both gonna probably be retired before this is all completed, right? And, it all started off with an idea of a hotel, right? That was part of the plan to start with, additional to the 2 million, space, 2 million square
That's
feet.
one constant, there was a hotel.
It was a hotel, then, one day, where'd the hotel go? The developer doesn't wanna do the hotel anymore. I think it's financially viable. Something like that came up, and they took that plan completely off. And now, foreclosures and bad
Money went in the
ideas
tank.
come along, and now all of a sudden it's like more residential, and now the hotel's back on. But I'm not hearing I'm not hearing the Westin is coming there or anything like that, or they have a signed contract for a hotel, right, that they've announced.
We don't have an
They
approved
don't- or
development
like, you
plan
know, the
for it
Ritz,
yet, so
Nobody's,
we don't wanna
nobody's
get,
announced any plans that they plan on taking that space, right?
we don't wanna get too ahead of ourselves, because we don't have an approved development plan yet.
That's true too. But 676 is the new plan, or at least that has not been approved, right? So to me, that's another 676 cars at a minimum. Potentially it could be close to 1,400 cars, another 1,400 cars to the town and the traffic. How many units after, if that was approved, what's the total number of residential units that will be there that were never planned for when you and I first started going down this road with the Flato administration?
Well, we currently have about 300 some odd units there between Alto, Trademark, and building number 4.
Yeah,
So,
be close to 1,000 then, if that was approved, right?
again, if you look at, again, what was considered at the
Yeah.
time, 2 million square feet of office space, there's a lot of traffic associated with that, which is why
Well,
the developer and the town needed to make certain
let's be
accommodations.
clear, but let's talk about that for one quick second. There's different types of traffic, right?
Sure, yeah.
So 2 million square feet of office space generates a traffic, some of whom will live in Fairfield. Many whom, and we were gonna be doing that infrastructure there, that was all discussed along the way.
Yeah.
To get them on and off 95. One of the things was it was right at a rail station.
Rail
Maybe some
station
of
and
them
off
would-
of an exit.
Maybe they'd be reverse commuting into Manhattan, Stamford, what other places. But they'd also be getting on to 95, whether they go north and get on Route 8, go up to Monroe, whether they go down south, who knows? But it wasn't supposed to be, but when you have people living here, they all have doctors in Fairfield, they all need to get to Stop and Shop, Whole Foods, you know, wherever it is. That's traffic that's here and doing little day trips everywhere, just like the rest of us in this room do on a daily basis. I need to go to Home Depot to get some fertilizer. I need to go to Raleigh's to grab a hot dog. You know, it's.
Hopefully you can walk to Raleigh's from here.
Well,
Oh,
possibly.
you're talking about,
You're talking about super duper.
Super duper
weenie.
weenie.
Yeah. No, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit different traffic. It's not the same thing to say that you have 2 million office space and that everyone's gonna be here.
Yeah,
It's-
typically with an office, obviously, you know, we've all worked in offices. People come at the start of a shift when they're supposed to
Yeah.
start working, they leave at 5 o'clock.
Exactly. And then, you know, it's a little bit different
Well-
shift. Just like the old Bullards building was the same way.
Well, you had
It was people coming.
10,000 workers there.
Yep, and it was people coming and leaving.
Many of whom perhaps lived in the same neighborhood.
Some people did. I mean, some people lived there, some people lived all over the place. I had the pleasant experience of a woman who died at 104, who lived across from me, told me how her and her husband both worked there and built this house for $10,000 across the street from me. But it's just a different type.
There's no question, it's different types of
Replacing it, it's
development,
just
yeah.
different, and it's just, the traffic's bad already, and it just concerns me, is how much more we can handle.
Can I ask something, because I'm kind of curious about the same, similar question about where we are now versus where perhaps we thought we were going to be years ago. And one of the documents that interested me coming to this meeting was this fiscal impact study that had been conducted quite a while ago, 2018. And I think it's something that I hope that the town will revisit and refresh. I think it's something that should be refreshed. I think it's a great document. I think it's a pretty good analysis. Most of my questions are just kind of wondering where we are today versus those projections. And just like for context, for anybody who hasn't looked at that recently, you know, the town went out and did a fiscal impact study, and it was basically looking at 3 different scenarios of development. And the scenarios differed essentially only in how much residential versus office versus retail would get built. Is that?
Well, that wasn't the focal point. The focal point obviously was looking at the fact that we have a train station, and we're looking at ways to leverage that asset, which the state and the town both made a considerable investment, and looking at the types of uses that would be appropriate for that location, and then determining what is the market potential or demand for those different types of uses, including residential.
But the
And
different
then looking-
scenarios
and
differ.
then looking at, what's the impact, both from a fiscal standpoint as well as impacts to infrastructure, traffic, those types of things. So trying to get a sense as to, again, looking at different development scenarios, how that would inform the development of that particular area.
And the different scenarios, what was different about each scenario? Because all the assumptions were the same otherwise, except, okay, in scenario A, you're gonna have. of all the
There was
develop-
more office-driven,
Yeah.
right, and status quo.
So, based on that chart you had here with all the development that's happened since 2018, I'm guessing we've probably overshot. So, we've undershot.
The study was a little bit overshot. I think we've underperformed.
Yes.
Relative to the study.
So I guess big picture, the question I'm getting at, and I have a lot of little questions about it, but the conclusion that study reached was that under any scenario, the net impact, the net fiscal impact would be positive. In other words, that there would be associated costs with all the development, all the new people in town, but we'd still sort of have a profit margin, so to speak. And I'm wondering where we are now. Have the valuations that study assumed, have they proven to be accurate? Have we undershot? Have we overshot? Has the extent of development, it sounds like it's under, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, the development hasn't unfolded as quickly as was forecast in that report, which, again, looking at some of the sites in question, perhaps they were a little bit more
Complicated.
complicated would be a good word, but I think, I think, the office, that was my takeaway too, which was there's the market demand potential for residential development in the area. It does have a net positive fiscal impact. We don't anticipate a lot of school-age children living in these types of units. And I think, for a large part, the actual evidence to date has largely borne that out. Now, that's not, again.
On the, so, I mean, there's a lot of, again, I'm not expecting you to be able to sort of parse where we are now versus that study on the fly, but I do think it's something worth looking at. And, the demographic question is a big one, I think, and that's why Jim's question, triggered it in me, is that if we have a lot more people than when we were projecting, that's going to be, I think, pretty material. Because one of the things the study is saying is that there are costs in our town. Some of them are fixed, like Tom, like a department head. That's not going to change whether you have 1,000 people or 500 people.
Yeah.
But police, fire, and education, that will change based on the amount of people you have. And so that sort of 0.08 history is probably the thing that makes me the most anxious. And the study was assuming that you would have a 0.13, right?
Right, it was 0.13, and we've found that it's less than that.
0.13. So if that number is bigger, the reason it makes me concerned is that it could not only increase the cost just in terms of teachers, et cetera, but it could, if it's really much more school-age children per unit, it could require a capital investment. And one of the things that the study does not assume is any capital expenditures. It's pure operating expenses. So there's an assumption that there will be no capital expenses as a result of all this development, which may be true because we've already got the sewage, I think, is the big thing, but school is the other big bogey, right? So I'm wondering if that, I don't know how to sort of get at what I'm saying. If there's people looking for housing, why wouldn't they cram into smaller units, and why wouldn't we have?
We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen. Can I just?
No, go ahead.
We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that the number of school-age children is even what they projected in this.
It's under.
Report.
It's under.
Based on the one that you put in.
Consistently under that.
Right.
And that's not just at Fairfield, BlackRock. I keep wanting to say Fairfield Metro, but other developments we found the same. Again, if you look at the breakdown of units, 75% of these units townwide are, and particularly the set-aside developments, are studio and one bedrooms. It's a little bit more like 60-40 with the inclusionary zoning developments around Fairfield, Black Rock Station, 60% studio one bedroom, 40% two bedroom type units. We haven't seen any threes with the exception of 78 Uncle, which is set-aside development downtown. So, you know, we haven't seen the school-age children materialize, and we've been tracking that for a fairly long time.
2017.
It has a material, okay, well, that's.
And so it's generally been lower than what's projected there. I will also say, you know, the sewage issue is a concern. Sewer capacity is a concern. I would say that with regard to the East Trunk Sewer, we had to do that work regardless, because that trunk sewer was in very poor condition. It was old. It was located in a creek, which was failing in the sense that the piles on which it was situated were failing, allowing creek water or other water that shouldn't be in the system to get into the system. So, and they tracked that, the Water Pollution Control Authority or utility tracked that. 50% of the flow was I&I that shouldn't be in the system. So
Yeah,
part of it is just address the fact that we underinvested in our sewer infrastructure for so long, fix that. But of course, if we're gonna fix it, we not only wanna fix it to meet current capacity or demand, we wanna obviously allow for future growth to the extent to which we're encouraging that development to occur. So
I was mostly talking about capital that aren't even on the water fund.
I hear what you're saying,
Let me
yeah.
just say one more thing and then I'll give it back to you.
I'll defer to you.
I just had one more question about the student population.
Because I have real numbers for that, so we track it.
Yeah, I do want the real numbers, but the other question I have is that, okay, so this is like about the housing chain, basically. If part of the PACD is saying, we gotta let people downsize in Fairfield. Okay, so you have an empty nester that moves into one of these one bedrooms. And now you have 0 child per that unit. But maybe in that empty nester's house, you've now got one of these families of 5 that moves in from Utah. And now we've got, you know, a lot, we're undercounting the people, right? And just in the assumption of that report that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And also it's not captured in the analysis of the actual multifamily unit, right? Because it's not looking at the parallel market that people are moving from.
Well, so what I will say is, and, you know, our first select person knows this, having been the chair of the Board of Education for a long time, they do projections very frequently based on birth rate, based on in-migration. And so they have a very solid understanding as to what those projections are going to be. Sometimes they're a little bit off. I will say that, you know, at the time that the 2018 study, TOD study was done, the student population was about 9,900 students. We're about 1,000 students less than that right now, based on the May 2026 count. We're at 8,900 students. We have tracked the actual number of students in multifamily units over, I think we do it actually over 10 units, since 2017. In 2017, we had 210 students that were generated from those multifamily developments. We hit a high in 2021 of 325 students. This past year, we were at 255 students. And that's with all of the new development from 2018. So since 2018, we've added 566 units that contain 42 students. Most of the students are actually in the older construction units because they tend to be townhouse style. So those have been in the system. We are not seeing an appreciable increase in students in the larger multifamilies because of unit configuration, just as Mark said. Those are studios, those are ones, they're smaller. Some of our older multi-housing stock, like the condos, that's really what's generating a lot of students.
Yeah. There's better options for folks with kids if they.
Did you just say since 2018, there's only been 566 units?
Correct.
That's been developed? And all of these apartment buildings, all the way
Yes.
down, and all the affordable housing units?
Yes.
566?
Since 2018, yes.
Yeah, I think there is you need to separate out the stuff that gets proposed and approved versus, and even permitted versus actually gets built. And so, I didn't have those numbers right offhand, but that doesn't sound surprising based on what I've looked at in the past. We do have a record of all those developments and when they came online in terms of I just don't have it in front of me, so I
I'm
don't.
surprised there's not a zero after that number.
It's not, yeah, I know it's in the hundreds for sure.
And who's going to talk about this form?
I can talk about that. Do you want me to finish this?
Yeah, you have,
One page to go.
2 pages.
A lot more than that.
No,
To Mark's piece.
To Mark's piece, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just, I think if folks have gone past Fairfield Black Rock train station, you'll see new construction taking place next to Illicit Brewing. This is development by Post Road Residential, who developed the Anchorage. It's a brownfield site for former Bullard Foundry. This will be called the Bullard, I believe. And it's a mixed-use development with 245 units. We expect that to come online towards the end of 2027.
What's the square footage of the retail office?
The retail office is quite small. It's probably, 10,000-15,000 square feet roughly.
About that, yeah.
Wasn't there a restaurant at one time?
There is it's flexible space. It was at one point identified as co-working space. It could also be a restaurant. It's currently for lease, pre-lease up for retail. So it could very well be a restaurant. Again, those of you who travel the Post Road probably see a black monolith taking place on the Post Road. The former Exide battery site, ground lease to Penske Automotive. They're moving their Porsche sales and service facility to this location. We expect that to be completed. It'll look much better when it's done, I promise, but at the end of end of this year, rather. At least I'm told it will.
Big flag.
I hope so. It looks like an Amazon distribution center right now.
It does not. I was going to take a picture to share with you, but I figure, no, that's really not very attractive looking at all.
Really happy when I saw that.
Mark, before you move off the Porsche dealership, I noticed that the purchase price was around $4.5 million. But do we know what the assessed value will be once the construction's complete?
I do have that. Let me get it back to you. I do have that, yeah. When it's done?
Yeah, ballpark.
Yeah, I did look at that briefly based on other auto dealerships here. I think that's probably, I don't have the assessment number, but the number of taxes jumps into my head because it's basically the improvements on it. The land will stay the same.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that it'll probably be about $150,000 in net taxes for the improvements, so.
Can they pay us in Porsches for the Board of Finance?
You were saying,
out of order.
Mark, you were saying that, I think the last time that you actually did present, I was talking about this Porsche dealership, you were saying that had this been a residential unit, the taxes would have been significantly higher.
It
'Cause you
would
can
have
generate a
been,
lot
it
more
would have
income
been,
on-
but, on the flip side, to Jim's point earlier, I think you would expect that to generate more traffic than what this proposed use is. That was a major selling point, I guess, for the attorney representing the Penske Automotive Group. It's not going to generate a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
But it's also not going to generate, it's a large site. It's six acres. We don't get too many swings at 6 acre sites. Not a lot of them. So there is a feeling, I think, from some members of the community that this is maybe we could have done better. But I think it depends on what your goal or objective is. I think that's important to keep in mind here.
Okay, thank you.
Lastly, there's not a lot of movement on the Circle Inn property. This is still in litigation. We have a fairly well-loved facility there that's probably at the end of its useful life, but they're looking to replace that with a new hotel as well as apartments on the site. We would predict that would generate roughly $1.5 million in net new taxes based on the proposed development plan, but along with the companion set-aside development application that was filed roughly simultaneously. So there's a Plan A and a Plan B. They're both in court on appeal.
I'm sorry, is it public information? Can you share about the litigation? What's the
current status?
Yeah, or what's the case? I'm not familiar with the.
Well, folks took an appeal on the land use approval.
Got it.
For neighbors.
Neighbors, okay.
So I think at some point it'll probably work itself out in terms of some kind of settlement, but we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, you had a question?
Yeah, the yellow section on this form, what's supposed to be?
I'm getting there.
That should be
I swear.
under construction. The label dropped off somehow, but that should be.
Did it really drop off?
Yeah.
Construction?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my bad.
You looking at this?
Yeah,
No, I'm looking at this, there's no.
I'm sorry, I didn't even notice that. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
It's there, it's just in yellow ink.
No, it really did drop off. But thanks,
Because if some of these projects get approved, Circle Lynn, 250, Bullard, 266.
Again,
81 Black Rock Turnpike.
I'm listing every single project, some of which have a
1,000 units.
Plan A and Plan, yes, there's a total, I think, somewhere.
Is there a way to redo this form and like total these sections up, like so that the completed has a total?
Sure.
That the under construction has its own total, the approved / expect to start?
Yeah, understand the purpose of this really was to provide an internal tracking document so that we can keep tabs on where things are
I
in the
understand.
process, so.
Yeah, but it would help us, I think,
I understand what you're
to know what the.
So, I just had a couple more slides, and I'll be happy to address the summary of residential development, which I think, again, was a question posed by members of this board. I know there was some discussion about parking. The Economic Development Commission considered this in the context of what was presently before the board at the time, I need more time, yeah. The conservation mitigation districts, I keep getting the acronym wrong, but one thing that we did note that the Plan of Conservation Development has recommended that we conduct a parking study, and the Economic Development Commission did think that was a good idea. We've since talked.
Was a good idea?
Good idea.
Yeah.
So we've talked to MetroCog.
Great idea.
MetroCog actually has done some initial work, which I'm sharing with you today. So it is important to think about, the area that we call Fairfield Center. About a third of this area is currently dedicated to surface parking. A third of our land area is dedicated to surface parking. So and that totals the shaded areas that you're looking at, 2,947 spaces, which includes the garage behind the Fairfield Center building. That does not include the 1,016 spaces at the train station, the 141 spaces at the Mill Plain lot, or the 325 spaces at the Rec Department Sportsplex, which is part of an extended downtown. So you add in those additional spaces, we're almost at 44, a little over 4,400 spaces. So there is a lot of parking downtown. Now, some of this is obviously private versus public. Some of it's on-street versus off-street. So I think one of the questions that we, in terms of not only assessing our current inventory and getting a better handle on that, but also understanding how we can better leverage what we currently have before we look at ways in which we need to augment that. So I think, one of the things the Planning and Zoning Commission and the POCD pointed out was, hey, maybe we should do more to encourage shared parking arrangements so that we can liberalize or make it more flexible in terms of who can use this and when. There's certainly some things that we could do better in terms of making it more visible, more apparent to where people can park. So I think all this would be the subject of a parking study. We did talk to MetroCog. They do have funds available, which we have applied for. So this could be largely supported by federal planning dollars available through the regional MPO, MetroCog. We would still need to come up with a 20% match, and our department is willing to step up and help meet that match. We're looking for other departments to help join. We're thinking this will be about a $50,000 to $100,000 project, so 20% $10,000 to $20,000, which we think, again, is a good investment to understand better the current parking situation downtown and what we can do to better leverage our existing assets.
Mark, did you say downtown has 2,970?
2,947 spaces, yeah.
Okay. And then, do you have, and the reason why I bring this up, because I obviously owned a business downtown.
Yes, you have.
Okay. And so I always, in 900 square feet, I had 3 people plus the boss. That's 4 cars as employees in 900 square feet. My guys could never find parking.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, out of all the employees, I'm thinking of like a big operation like Colony, right? Colony's got a ton of.
Yeah. Colony does have a parking
Well,
lot.
they do,
so, yeah.
right? But it's in the number, right? It's in the 29.
Yes, it is.
And so when you fill up all these spaces with all these employees that are coming down there to work, then you try to put patrons on top of that. That's where I.
Anything I will say to that,
that's where
Dave, I understand where you're coming from. We do have a lot of businesses that utilize our downtown employee parking program. The pantry takes a lot of permits for their employees. I have yet to, we oversell, we issue more permits than we have spaces available. We have yet to run into a situation recently where somebody says, I have not been able to find a parking spot. And I do regularly check these because I walk downtown almost every single day. So I know the spaces that will be the last to be used, and when I start to see those filled up, then I'll know we have a bigger issue.
I mean, where I was.
Yes,
we were
in part of
we
downtown.
were on the 50-yard line of downtown. And we actually, at one point, we had a guard in the parking lot pushing people away because they were taking spots.
I remember that, yeah.
And it was chaos. It's still chaos.
We have a dental office there too that has a lot of employees.
They kick you out kids.
I have a question.
Henley, then Mr. Walsh.
Kids first.
Maybe this is for Emmeline too. I don't know who this is better for, but okay. So this is something. How to settle this for me? Because this is a question I don't understand. I've kind of heard it out there. Looking at this like picture here, which is very charming. And I think one of the things that people like about the downtown is how it's aesthetic. Okay, so if you require parking, like let's say you require for new developments to have parking, and let's say that like this building were sold and then they wanted to redevelop it, would you then have to build parking at that unit? Like
Yeah.
so would
That's
this
part of the
then look like a
conversation.
place with a big parking lot?
That's part of the conversation. So I think that's why we want to really do the downtown parking study to really understand, is it a management issue that we have in terms of downtown? Could we reconfigure on-site spaces to be more efficient? Could we make sure that, it was a light bulb moment for me when I realized there's a gender divide between who likes to use the completely free 1,000-space parking lot for the commuter lot at night, right? Because the staircase doesn't provide visibility. So, I would talk to men throughout the departments, even my own commission, and they said, oh, that staircase is great. I would talk to the women in my commission and they would say, I'm not using that at night. So, we have some of those really small things that seem like those could be simple fixes where we coordinate better with FTC and with the community theater. Once small improvements like that, like the opacity of the glass on the stairwell are made.
I just think that's interesting what you said too about the gender divide crossing there. I'm just asking a more basic question, like if you had a parking requirement.
Yes.
If you had a parking requirement.
Yes, it would
do you
potentially
open up for these unintended consequences where then like a building
Yes.
gets sold and now it looks
Yes.
not charming like
And I think
people
that's a.
want.
Yes.
I didn't include the
That is-
slide,
that
although
is-
Emmeline suggested I include the slide, but if you look at the number of properties.
I included it.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Properties or
We'll get to
businesses
it.
downtown that have, that exist by virtue of getting a parking variance, it's quite a few. I would say most, if not, very, very few restaurants downtown would exist without benefit of a parking variance. And I think it was justly granted because, to your point, I don't think we want buildings with parking lots around it in our downtown. That's not what any of us would like to see downtown. Now, I do think that, we need to look at the parking situation and figure out ways in which we could do it better. But to Emmeline's point, it could be more, not necessarily creating more supply, but how we better manage what we have. And taking down some of the barriers so that people can use it. You know, if you go into some places, you see it's parking for this particular business only. Now, I gotta, on the record here, but I'm sure I'm not alone when I park in a space there and I walk across the street. I'm not going to those businesses because I'm doing a couple different errands. That's what we want people to do. We don't want people to get in their car and drive across the street to do another 5-minute stop.
Yeah.
But that's what it says.
But if you're paying the Clevelands, or it's actually not owned by the Clevelands anymore, but if you're playing Regency Centers, a national REIT, high numbers as a tenant. They provide you with a lot of amenities. And the tenants there, who are paying a lot of money, don't have, or their customers are saying there's no parking spaces, right? That's why I saw this sign today show up, which it rightfully should. And this is starting to pop up all over town. Brick walk parking only. All others towed at vehicle owner's expense.
Yeah, I don't think that's not a new phenomenon.
No, I know, because those landlords are responsible, but the tenants are paying for it, for the liability if someone falls in their
I'm
parking
not
lot.
saying it's gonna be easy, but there gotta be a way in which we can work together to help share.
Well, that's why when you look at this, it's deceiving. This is all of surface parking. I get it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see this as how much is this is public parking?
That's one of the things we're gonna be
How much is
asking.
public parking, do you think, out of those spots?
Not very much.
Well, the on-street certainly
Yeah.
is considered.
So-
but, there's
Yeah.
not too many public parking lots downtown.
Yeah.
Right.
Common Greens to,
And now we're looking at changes in legislation, this public act that has been passed, where if you have 15 units or more, you do something, and
No, 16 units or less.
16 units or less,
Correct.
you don't need parking.
Right now, that's what the state law says, correct?
Yeah, 16 units or less, you don't need parking.
Yeah.
So people decided to maximize their dollars, which is human nature, if you're a landlord, downtown, and you want to start building up and put, a couple of affordable housing units so you don't have to follow our zoning rules, and keep it to under 16 units, you don't need parking. And now it's just more people being forced to find parking.
Now, I will
And
say,
and that is a scary thought.
yeah,
And our TPZ commission has not done anything to create parking mitigation areas to date. They've talked about it, but nothing has happened. And you want to create a disaster, anybody can come in and file a permit right now under the state law at town hall and get approved for it. There's nothing you can do.
so I will say that 830G allows developers to completely waive all of our requirements, including parking.
Yep.
Every single 830G application, and we had 12 this past year, included parking in their development that met the ratio required by state law. They were consistent with the state law.
Even though they
So,
were not required to
Even
do.
though they were not required, and what Mark and I find is the market dictates, not the zoning regulations. So they're gonna include parking because if you're somebody who wants to rent, even in Fairfield, you expect a parking space with your unit. So right now, and again, this past year was an experience for both myself as staff and as the commission, where they had meetings every single night dealing with 830Gs. So I understand the concern, but every single 830G had parking associated with it. So again, even when the state law that's been around since the mid-'80s gave them the ability to waive that parking standard, none of them did. So I understand that there's concern. We want to understand the data first in terms of the downtown parking assessment to really understand whether are we inadvertently going to harm the built environment where we've got a really great building fabric and continuity of buildings in the downtown, and we just want to understand that better in terms of the spaces that are there, and then how we should move forward. So I do appreciate people's concerns. We hear them. We just don't want to act rashly in terms of requiring this standard when we're seeing it being met by developers anyway.
But if there was 12 applications. Did they have the amount of parking they were required to under our zoning rules? Or was it less parking than was required? I'm not saying that there wasn't any parking there. Was it what you would have required under our zoning regulations for the amount of parking needed? Because one of the complaints is where the Masonic Temple was, in that apartment building that was built there.
For Anchorage?
Yeah, Anchorage, is that what it's called? I don't even know. what it is.
Masonic Temple is Beach
Oh, 131 Beach.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And they were told, the tenants are all told there's enough parking, and there's not enough parking. So the developer told people, oh, no one's at, M&T Bank at night, no one's at the periodontist, the Cintos, I think Cinto might own that. No one's there, you can park there. Well, you know what, those landlords have a problem. They started towing
We
people,
haven't-
and they're like,
yeah, I mean,
tenants are like, where are we supposed to park?
Yeah, I mean, I've driven through that development after a TPZ meeting, and there are parking spaces available underneath the building. So I don't know where those spaces are being generated from, but there's still spaces under the building when I go there at 10 o'clock at night.
I know the guy who built that building. There hasn't been any issues with parking there.
There's tenants complaining about it.
I'll ask him tomorrow and get back to you.
Before we go down another rabbit hole, it's 9 o'clock. Can we take a 5-minute bio break? Because I don't think anyone wants to leave the table, but
Thank
we
you.
want to
I
continue the
appreciate it.
conversation.
Thank you,
So,
Great idea. Appreciate it.
I'm not even getting to you.
I know, we can just skip my slides, that's all right.
You done?
I was trying.
He's just got one more, two more, that's it. First.
15 more people.
Emmeline.
Emmeline.
I'm going to defer to my colleague then. I have
Are we
one.
back on, by the way? Yeah, thank you.
I was asked to give an update as to where we stand. You know, we were able to secure our first moratorium in April of 2025. That expires 4 years thereafter, March of 2029. We have been working to ensure that we will have enough points to apply for and receive a subsequent moratorium before the first moratorium expires, so that we'll have another 5 years of relative peace in terms of 830G application, the potential for that. We're most of the way there. So under the current statute, you need 1.5 points times the last decennial census, so that works out to 330 housing unit equivalency points. Based on those that are completed and those currently under construction, we're about 305 points currently. I will note that there is a contract to purchase by the Connecticut Housing Partners, the Bronson Road development, called Bronson, I don't know, I think it's called Towers. But that would increase the number of points there associated with that project by another 103 points. So based on that, I can state with fairly high degree of certainty that we'll have enough points before the end of 2028, 2029, when we need to submit this application for a subsequent moratorium.
Sorry. I unfortunately have to leave, but I just wanted to say one thing. It's my little summary for me. Mr. Loss makes great points, you make great points. The bottom line is you need that parking study. That's what you're telling us. I think we all agree that that's a smart thing to
working
do.
on it.
So.
Yep.
Mr. Rock?
Can I just, so I know very little about how these points work, but I know that, isn't there you get points, but then it's like 30 years and then they fall off? It's not forever, right?
The deed restrictions, the state statute under 830G, for example, requires units to be deed restricted for a period of 40 years. 40 years. That's not to say that communities can't come up with strategies or plans to extend that beyond 40 years, but the statute, the minimum requirement for a set-aside development is 40 years.
So we're not in a situation where we've got X.
We're not going to have a bunch of projects falling off,
Okay,
not
okay,
in
that's
the
what I
immediate
wanted to
future. 40 years from now, we may have an issue, but.
You didn't know that.
Quincy Street's not included here?
Well, I didn't include Quincy Street, but it would be to the better. Yeah. All right. Now I will turn things over to my colleague. Yeah, sorry, I didn't leave you any time.
One last question, Mark. Housing Trust Fund.
We currently have an uncommitted balance of roughly $1 million. It's largely funded through inclusionary zoning fees based on new construction or building additions that don't otherwise make accommodations to meet our affordable housing goals. And so a lot of that comes from projects at the two universities which go into the fund.
Great. Thank you. Hi there.
Hi, thanks. I'm Emmeline Harrigan, Planning Director, as many of you know. So as Mark mentioned, this past year, we adopted the Plan of Conservation and Development. When we did outreach with the Plan of Conservation and Development, we heard a lot from residents that they really loved Fairfield Center and they wish that commercial districts, the other commercial districts in town, were more walkable. And so the zoning regulations that we're working on now and some of the zoning regulations that have been dictated by Public Act 25-1 are the 25-1 regulations are in the direction of where our regulations were going anyway, is what I will say. In our TOD study that was completed in 2018, a lot of those goals were reintroduced in the POCD, including some design standard requirements. But I'll talk about PA 25-1 first because I think that's gotten a lot of conversation in the community and concern. The provision, basically what PA 25-1 says is that for residential units up to 16, the town cannot mandate a parking requirement. That includes any residential development up to 16 units. It can be a single family, a duplex, a fourplex. So we do have, as of right, duplex and fourplex zones within Fairfield. Obviously, a majority of our zoning is dedicated to single-family zones. And then for any developments over 17 units, you're required to provide 1 parking space for up to 1 bedroom, 2 parking spaces for anything 2-bedroom or more, or the lesser of what is determined through what's called a parking needs assessment, which would be a study completed by a transportation planner or a traffic engineer to determine what the uses, what that particular project is likely to require based on certain factors like proximity to transit. I will say that, for example, in the Fairfield Blackrock Station area, Trademark 1, their parking was provided at a ratio of 1.5 per unit. We didn't look at the bedroom count. That's just what we assigned them. They are overparked for that development. I think now that Sally's is there, they're really close to being right on the money for where they're parking, where they find that their parking is more fully occupied. But when they carried that retail for 18 months, the residential units, it was half of the lot was empty. So, you know, I think that mixture of uses is really kind of understanding the key relationship between those two things and what one's going to generate versus the other. But we are finding adjacent to transit, the residential parking demand is lighter. The other thing that we did, and I'm going to thank Mr. Ellwanger for this, is when he was a member of the Affordable Housing Committee, he really looked at our multi-tenant plazas and found that they were significantly underutilized to the tune of only 40% on average of those parking lots were being used. And so this is some of Bob's work that he did in looking at some of those largest local multi-tenant shopping plazas that we have. I think the Bob's Plaza is one of the least utilized, 19%. Oh, sorry, BJ's is 19%. The former Bob's Plaza, it's at 21% utilization rate. So we knew that we wanted to kind of right-size our parking requirements with really what we're seeing out there in terms of multi-tenant plazas and shared parking. There are also some requirements within PA 25 to allow for fee in lieu of parking. You heard Lisa Claire talk about complete streets and safe streets for all. And we think that this can be helpful for funding some of those complete streets initiatives that, you know, we hope to develop further, you know, as we continue to look at our roadways and making them safer. The parking needs assessment is dictated by state statute, but actually in Fairfield's regulations, okay, what do I do here? I need more time.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I hope that works. The parking needs assessment is actually something that was within Fairfield's regulations already, where we had what we called a finding of parking sufficiency for multi-tenant plazas. The state statute actually just provided clearer guidance, and so we adopted that within our regulations as well. To Mark's point, this is a map, and I'm sorry that the red lines aren't really that stronger, but these are all the parcels in Fairfield Center that have been issued variances. It is a majority of the parcels in Fairfield Center. Usually in planning, the rule is when you issue a variance for the same thing over and over and over again, it's not a problem with the parcels, it's a problem with your regulations. We really took that to heart, and particularly in the Fairfield Center area, we added a regulation that allows for flexibility so that these property owners and these tenants don't have to go get variances again. And it allows them, as long as that building footprint remains, to flex to a different use if market trends change for what that tenant mix is profitable to be. We really, again, I think flexibility within your regulations is really helpful to maintaining a very low vacancy rate. So that was the goal of this, and that was a goal identified in the Plan of Conservation and Development. Mark spoke to joint usage of parking areas. We originally had a distance of 500 feet that we allowed for joint usage of parking areas. Recently, this is the Rio Bravo site. This is the site that Mark referenced as 730, 750 Commerce Drive, where this is proposed for 90 units. They also did the Alto development across the street from this, and they built in 360 extra parking spaces because they thought they were going to lease commuter parking. And so they have a lot of extra spaces within the garage that they built. So this was one where, of course, it made sense to kind of look at that other property and be able to say, you know, if you have a restaurant in this location and you've got great signage, this is a natural relationship to be able to have joint parking across the street and not even on adjacent parcels. But as long as we know that, you know, our role and responsibility is making sure those intersections are pedestrian safe, they have the right markings, all of those different things. But this is a way that allows us to allow a developer to build something that pencils out, but then utilize partnered shared parking agreements. You know, when you think about this, again, this brings up my point for, you know, the commuter lot and better utilization of that space. When you think of any shopping mall that you go to, those are pretty significant distances. And our downtowns, we really should think about parking supply, not as being right next to the business that you go to, but being within the vicinity of the business that you go to. And we really have to kind of drive that home. And I think that's part of what we hope the parking study will really provide. You know, I have heard from other places with very healthy downtowns that part of what we should look at is accessibility too. You know, sometimes when you provide this better wayfinding, better understanding as to how to get to the parking supply that you do have to look at sprinkling some accessible spaces better throughout your, you know, your town center areas, and that will be part of what we look at in the downtown parking study. The other thing that PA 25-1 required was making by summary review within our commercial or mixed-use districts, either transit community middle housing, which is a 2 to 9 unit development, or mixed-use development by summary review. We chose the mixed-use development portion because we are deeply committed to ground floor commercial in the town of Fairfield. We've got a very low vacancy rate, which means that there's very high market demand for what's available in Fairfield, and we didn't want to limit that by choosing a 100% residential alternative by summary review in all of our commercial and mixed-use districts. As Mark mentioned, we have under 5% of our land use for commercial use, but it generates 12% of the total grand list, and probably is shifting a little bit higher based on the mixed-use developments that have recently been approved. So we really need to make the most of our mixed-use areas. In the POCD, Fairfield residents made it pretty clear that they want us to leave other single-family residential neighborhoods alone. So that means that we have to focus very intentionally, very carefully within the mixed-use districts, in our commercial districts. So the summary review standards, it's basically a site plan review before the Plan and Zoning Commission. It's not a public hearing. The statute doesn't allow that. It's review within 65 days of submittal of an application. What that means to me as a planner is we need to have all of our requirements within our regulations very clear and as significant as we need them to be for the items where we feel like there could be a resulting public health or safety issue. As a response to that, one of the things that we've added within our regulations is stormwater regulations, so that we are dealing with some of the on-site detention issues, making sure that the runoff from new development is being captured, treated before it gets into our groundwater. Also, looking at traffic impact studies and having very clear and distinct requirements for what the town expects to see in terms of what those studies include. Number of trips that these things, that uses will add to the roadways, the primary intersections that are nearby that may or may not be impacted, and then any improvements that a developer would be required to make in consultation with our town engineering department, our public works department, and the state DOT, if the state DOT has jurisdiction, if it's a state road. So we have to be very clear and intentional about what we need, what we want. And the next part of this is we are updating our architectural design standards to make sure that we get buildings that we will want to be there for the next 50 years of the lifetime of that structure. So we're very carefully and intentionally looking at all of those different things. One of the things that Mark spoke to, and this was a different public act that was adopted last year, is PA 25-164. It's the conversion of vacant commercial to residential statute. It does provide a tool in the toolbox by allowing us to apply for grayfield funding if we need, for example, to analyze this. A perfect example would be If for whatever reason, we decided, well, we're just not gonna get another big box retailer on the Bed Bath & Beyond site. We really maybe should look at that, because they're a type of mixed use or residential development that would be more appropriate there. Grayfield is not the same as Brownfield. Grayfield just indicates that it's an underutilized commercial property, not that it's environmentally hazardous. The two examples that Mark provided, one at 60 Katona Drive. The other example is the SCAP properties on Tungus Hill that have been vacant for a while. We have had some interest from folks that are looking at mixed use and residential for those sites. Because I think to be utilized as a new car dealership, the new car dealership brand requirements are quite significant, and it would almost be a tear down and reconstruct. So I think the question is, do these buildings still have some viability for a different purpose? And folks are kind of winding through that, those pro formas now to figure that out.
Just a question for you. I know we're going through, I don't want to slow down the presentation here, but when you say that we need to get a mindset of walkability, and you show a diagram of the mall, for example, I don't really think that is necessarily comparable to downtown, because particularly with the weather. I mean, there's a lot of different things. Where you go to a mall, you have a walking area, underpass where you're not covered, but getting soaked, et cetera. But we want to also keep elderly. I mean, I don't want to. I know you're going to look at it during the parking study.
Absolutely. Yep, we are.
I don't want to. I don't think we should necessarily have to shift our population's mindset on walkability. I love to walk.
Yeah.
But for everybody, I mean, you can't.
What I will say is that it was a unifying theme within the POCD outreach that we did, that people wanted pedestrian sidewalk improvements, that, they were really craving this in all of it was a pretty universal comment, actually. So
I love the idea of the walkability, but I don't want to think of the concept that we have to get used to it. I think we need to deal with the fact that we need parking available.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
I mean, I think ensuring that those environments are pleasant, are attractive, they have, well lit, they're safe.
The issue with that not being well lit, I would have that addressed immediately.
Yeah. So I think that those are, I think we're trying to improve the really great environment that we have downtown, and I think that's just part of it. But I think these days malls are dying because they're not downtowns, right? So I think we've got a bit of an advantage in terms of having these really great bones. We have one of the best downtowns in the state. I mean, to be honest, my planner came from Hartford, Manchester, and Waterford, and he still can't believe how amazing Fairfield downtown is. So I really don't want to discount just how wonderful bones we have to work with, but the reality is we absolutely can make it better. And that's part of the study. It's part of the road safety audit that's coming up for Fairfield Center, and really figuring out, are there grants that we can apply for that help improve this environment even more than it is today? Sorry.
Can I ask a question about traffic studies?
Yep.
I've followed quite a bit the meetings on 4480 Black Rock and 4421 Black Rock and 1477 Congress. They're in my neighborhood. As an RTM member, I was all over that. And the thing that struck me most is that it doesn't seem as though these traffic studies are coordinated. They look at a particular property and give you a traffic study for that property, but what they don't do is they don't coordinate if 4480 and 4421 and 1477 Congress all came online at the same time, you've got a massive amount of new traffic, but you're doing traffic studies for individual spaces, and it doesn't seem like there's an overarching traffic study that's going to say, well, if that comes online and that comes online, then this can't work. So can you explain how that would?
So actually with traffic studies, they do have to look at the conditions today. They have to look at the conditions with the project, and then they have to look at projected conditions with the projects that they know that have been submitted in the general area or projects that are constructed. So they look at all three of those things, and that's one of, I mean, that's why passing our regulations for what we want in traffic impact studies is really important, so we can clarify this is the data that we need to understand whether this project is going to cause a traffic issue.
Traffic study guys who do all the traffic studies, or is it different companies? How
I will
does it
say
work?
that there's about 5 companies in our region who do those studies.
'Cause it felt like I saw the same guys for the same,
Sometimes you will. Sometimes you will, for sure.
and they work very closely with the developers.
They're hired by developers, but they're also consultants that are hired by the town sometimes. It really just depends. The other thing that has come up, and this is a picture of 1675 Post Road, which was the 830G project that has 13 units. Speaking about that ground floor flexibility, we did add within the language to allow for ground floor residential conversion to commercial, sorry, from residential. My slide is a little confused here. But when the developer actually for this project wanted to do ground floor commercial, we reviewed it with the state DOH, who told us, well, I'm sorry, it's not going to be an 830G then if you do ground floor commercial. And so we just want to, if market forces allow this developer to convert that ground floor to commercial, as long as they maintain their deed restricted affordable, we want to allow that to occur because, again, that commercial
That's
ground.
within our purview, the town's purview to do that?
Yes. As long as they maintain what originally, because now, really what the Affordable Housing Act allows you is a direct line to a court process. This is a constructed project. So they would still have to maintain that deed restriction, but again, if somebody says, hey, I'd really love to put a restaurant or an office building in your ground floor, can I do that? We didn't want to limit the potential for that to happen. So for us, I think Mark and I have talked about kind of market uncertainties, different sectors of economic development uncertainties, and flexibility really is, I think, what's going to help Fairfield really be successful moving forward.
Is there something that the town can do to encourage that conversion?
I guess if Mark had a tenant who was looking, he could always approach the property owner, as he does with other properties, right?
I look at the 830G development on Umpqua and where Las Vegas was, and it's just a sin that there's not ground floor.
There will be. That was what was decided with the settlement agreement, yeah.
That's great.
So again, equalizing some of those business district standards, obviously, and you know this from your mind's eye, which ones are very auto-oriented commercial districts and which ones are, our center is, and Southport are two of the best walkable environments. And we'd like our other commercial districts really be able to convert to that. It's not going to happen tomorrow. When you do planning, as you see with the Fairfield Black Rock train station sites, sometimes you're looking decades into the future, but I think given the really strong response from the community that they really want more walkable environments, I think this is worth changing our regulations to push redevelopment when it occurs in that direction. So really re-engaging with the sidewalk in the public realm through our standards and regulations. And then also, simplifying some of the zoning around the Commerce Drive area. As you know, this is the area adjacent to the Fairfield Black Rock train station. This is where we're really putting a lot of our intentionality in terms of what we want to see. Really grand list growth. Again, this is our original regulations for this district were adopted back in 2011. Then we really looked at the lack of office demand and reprioritized with mixed use development. And the updated TOD study and analysis was done in 2019.
I know we've been back and forth on this a lot, but I'll just ask one more question on it. So just in terms of like the pressure on the school system, in as much as you got a lot of developments coming into a concentrated area, you're still not concerned just based on what we've seen with demographic growth and the history of people moving into these buildings,
No.
single units, just, okay.
No, it's just, they just don't generate that many kids.
I hope they don't.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, we're gonna have to see how the overall housing market either keeps people in those apartments until those kids, because a lot of times what we see is people have babies in the apartments and then they look for a detached single-family home. With some of the housing purchase pressures, they may have to stay there for a little while. And so when we look at the trends, we see a lot of kids in elementary school. Middle's our biggest gap, and then sometimes parents get divorced, and then we see like a good number of high schoolers. So it really just depends. It depends by year. And we look at what schools they come from, and where these apartments are sending kids as well, because I know that was a concern for two of our schools that have the highest enrollment numbers based on facility challenges. So we do keep an eye on that. Just to remind folks, I mean, these were large factories. So, as Mark mentioned, these roadways were developed to accommodate all of that traffic. The one thing that I will clarify is residential is very dispersed in terms of traffic generation. When you've got shift workers who all have to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there are hundreds of trips that are arriving all at the same time, that's a huge, significant generator on your adjacent intersections. In some of these apartment buildings, you may not have two people who work in the same place. You may have some people who work at home. And so one person has a 5-minute drive, the other person has an hour drive. So what we see, and we see this even with some of our completed projects, like the Anchorage on Umpqua Road, there's very little backup with people who are trying to leave that development because everybody has a different schedule. Commercial generators are, they're spot on. You have to be there at the start of the day, and at quitting time, everybody leaves at approximately the same time. So those are more intensive generators. Not that residential doesn't generate traffic, because it does, but it's more diffuse. And so sometimes with those trips, you can slot them into traffic patterns for broader periods of time instead of really exacerbating those peak times. It depends on the number of units, depends on the intersections. That's what we ask the traffic engineers and transportation planners to look at for us.
You're making a lot of generalizations. I mean, do you live in this town?
I don't.
Are you here often on Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays?
I am. I come in for shows and.
The downtown is jammed. And you can't tell me that someplace like the Anchorage is not, that's an additive number of cars. And they're not all just going to the local restaurants right around them. The downtown is jammed. It takes so long to get through there right now. It's crazy. I mean, people are complaining, there's people all over line. It takes, from getting from one side of this town to another, takes an hour. So there's this traffic issue no one seems to want to address, and everyone's unhappy with it. And it's going to have an effect. It's going to have an effect on the downtown businesses, on how much they want. I mean, me and Mr. Rock have talked at our table about it, how hard it is for restaurants downtown now, because people are complaining about how far they have to walk.
Aren't restaurants doing better right now? Aren't restaurants doing better right now? I would feel like right now, it's just booming downtown.
There's traffic because people are going out to eat.
It's booming, but people are complaining about how long it's taking to get. And there's people who are like, I'm not going to downtown Fairfield anymore.
It's
taking too long.
I know
a lot of restaurants in Westport, the traffic's not as bad.
Because
Like,
they're
I'm just gonna go to
designated,
Westport.
they're designated public lots. And so I do think that wayfinding will help with that. What I have heard anecdotally from folks who are concerned about parking downtown is that they circle.
Yeah.
And knowing where you can park with this parking study and having wayfinding that leads you there is going to be really crucial to improving the customer experience in Fairfield Center.
So to what public parking are you wayfinding them to?
So on the weekend,
What?
we have 1,000 spaces at the commuter lot that are free after 5 o'clock.
By far, though.
So
I do think there's some middle ground between what you guys are saying, because
What commuter lot are you talking about?
The train commuter lot.
it's across from the sports box. Across from the sportsplex.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about the main lot.
The main
Found.
You're talking about the main lot, right?
The stairs.
Okay, so what are we gonna do?
Why,
about
the
that?
parking-
I asked the first selectman at a meeting, so are we gonna bridge over it, or are we gonna tunnel under it?
Go under.
Which way?
We just want to study.
We do that.
That thing's a death trap.
How do you access that other side?
That would change, that would be a game changer.
The stairwell. You can access it with the stairwell.
With the stairwell.
Bond it and put a freaking thing over it.
People don't do that. It would just change.
We're not doing
Want to
it.
put a lid over?
Hold on. I'm sorry. We gotta have one conversation here. We got a live mic and everyone's
We're
talking.
gonna talk about.
That's fine, but I just want one conversation.
If you wanna talk about using it, then do a couple of things. What's your plan for getting to the other side that people feel safe doing?
Well, I think the staircase is a big barrier right now. It doesn't have opaque, it doesn't have clear sides.
Yeah.
So most women who I talk to don't use that stairwell at night because they cannot be seen. There's not safety cameras in the stairwell. I think that there are some, and again, I don't want to rush what the data will tell us in the parking study in terms of supply, what those distances are, where the businesses that are busiest during certain timeframes and what those adjacencies are that have to be met. So I think there's a lot of information. I'm not going to give you, I'm going to solve it X this way, this way, this way, this way, without that data that parking study is going to supply to us in terms of where the businesses are, where the parking deficiencies are, given public lots, private lots, on-street parking, adjacency to other places, whether there might be joint parking that's available. I think there's a lot of information that we need to understand before we get to solutions. And then, in your role, whether there's any price tag associated to that. But I think we need that information first.
Oh, we definitely need the information, but are people gonna be willing to spend money on a public parking lot or double decking the downtown side of the train station?
I think we have to look at what we have first.
To double deck that. Because I don't think they are. I don't think the taxpayers are willing to do that.
I don't think that the taxpayers would do, I think that's a private company that would come in and do that. I don't,
Really?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you
The
would be.
state owns that. The state owns that land.
No, the town owns most of the commuter lot in downtown. There's a little small piece that's owned by the state.
That's true.
But it does sound like the available parking is across the train tracks, and it is somewhat inaccessible. I do agree with that it is, it's a little bit, I mean, you can go over the things. And as we all know, I'm the most athletic member of the Board of Finance, and I have trouble getting up and down that.
Walk on the street.
On the street, you can go on the street, but that's.
Walk on the street. It doesn't take that long. I told you, just walk down Umpqua. You can go cut through Donnelly Way as a short.
I do all these things. I've been down all these little rabbit holes, but I think there's a legitimate. I mean, I think it's not that practical. I would say, like for
Especially in the
a
winter,
lot of
especially in
people.
the wintertime.
In the
When
wintertime.
20 degrees.
And people
Or the
who,
rain.
people who aren't as able-bodied too.
Well, that's to the point. It
Well,
means
it's a winter accessible parking.
People who aren't, who couldn't go on the street,
And I think that's all of what
Right
we
now,
look
we don't
at.
have any proposals for double-decker garages or even tunnels under tracks. Right now, we're just trying to get an assessment of what we need, right? That's what the study will tell us.
Absolutely.
And if the recommendation at that point is for capital investment, that's when we'll just revisit this discussion.
But I think we need the data, so.
Absolutely.
Can I do a quick question?
Yes.
So is there any information on instances, say in the last 5 years, where the town has come in, planning and zoning has come in and changed zoning in a residential AAA area to, say, a DRD?
A design residence district?
Yeah. Or any other acronym besides,
The 830Gs?
yeah. So for instance, 4480 Black Rock Turnpike abuts AAA residential, and now all of a sudden that property is now changed and you're allowed to put in multi there.
Well, I mean, Greenfield Hunt was a DRD,
Right.
right? So, that's kind of our biggest example up there,
So
but the developer.
4421, same thing. It abuts AAA and it didn't used to be that way. And so, and on Congress as well, whatever, 1477, it abuts AAA. I guess my question is, in all those three instances, you have people who are property owners who have put their biggest nest egg is their property. They bought it at X and it's now Y, and all of a sudden, right next to their property line is multi-unit. And it depresses the value of their investment. And those are 3 instances where that's happened. And I guess I'm concerned for people who have to bear the brunt of looking at them. You know, they're like, oh, I was gonna sell this and move down to Florida, and it used to be worth $1.2 million, and now it's worth $650, you know, and because of that. So I guess, can you take me through like what happens to make that happen? I'm
830G is an anomaly, right? 830G allows a developer to throw away all of our rules and regulations, figure out what's going to make a return for them, and then propose something on any parcel in town. There are still more desirable parcels. I mean, there's a reason why the Park Avenue apartment building took so long to lease, because it's not the prime place to put multifamily right now. So I don't know that developers, I haven't seen too many other applications on AAA pieces where people are just coming absent an 830G to want to do multifamily in that particular area. We're seeing more movement, I think, in some of the older commercial buildings, which I think, that's where I think we're going to see a lot of movement, along Kings Highway, along Tungus. A lot of those buildings are tired. They're from the 1900 to 1925. And even the buildings from 1950 are really tired within that corridor. And I think that's where we're going to see the most movement for redevelopment first. And I don't think it's all going to be really big buildings, because I think some of these folks are local property owners. We just had an application with the liquor store that's on Tungus, where somebody bought it from the existing property owner, split the ground floor into a smaller liquor store and a nail salon, and put 2 units above. So I don't think everything's going to be big, but I think we want to see those small redevelopments.
I'm completely focused just on those 3 properties and
Yeah.
people who had AAA zoning, who had, you know, 1.5 acres, 2 acres, whatever, and now they're stuck with, I got a multi-unit coming in right next to me and my property value just sunk by, 40, 50%. And I just think that's, I think that's terrible. That's my own opinion.
That's not where I see the demand, yeah, so. Okay, I'm gonna go through these really quickly. So, again, we're putting a lot of emphasis on the Commerce Drive area, because this is where the best opportunities are for grand list growth, for diversifying our housing stock, really looking at what was underutilized brownfields. Mark had mentioned the Bullard development and 750 Commerce. I mean, we expect the Bullard to be about $1.5 million in revenue. And, 750 Commerce is less units. That'll be probably just under 600,000 in terms of grand list revenue. We're seeing about $6,400 per unit in terms of taxes. So that's kind of what we're seeing as we look at these. Right now, there are 2 TOD overlays in that one very small district, so we're really trying to simplify that and make one TOD within that particular zone. The 2 biggest opportunities that we have left, as Mark mentioned, is the Ash Creek site, now known as the Crossing site, and then the state's own commuter lot. Those are really going to be the 2 next pieces that there will be some discussion about. And again, I'm happy to share that pre-app that shows that master site plan. There has been a lot of conversation about the conservation and parking. We call it the traffic mitigation district. All that it is it allows you to designate areas within your town to apply a parking standard that is equivalent to the state mandate for 17 units above and above. So up to 1 space for a 1-bedroom, 2 spaces for anything 2-bedroom or more. Where we get a lot of complaints in terms of too many cars is the beach district. A lot of complaints. So there is no deadline for implementation with this, but I think that our commission is going to relook at districts. I think they need some information to be able to do that. This doesn't affect commercial parking requirements, so we still have those commercial parking standards in place. Again, this applies to single families. I don't know too many contractors, custom home builders who aren't going to build a house without parking, right? So again, to that 830G example, the market is strong and supports developers building parking with their developments. So I think we're still going to continue to see that. but we're going to be prepared to be able to very thoroughly look at something. We're just going to take some time, is what I understand, to do that. And that's all I have.
Was there concern?
Hold on one second, I just want to go around the room. So Bob, then Dave, then Jim.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. Just to follow up on the there was a traffic study done, the traffic circle, as well as Black Rock Turnpike.
Yes.
Years ago, I guess.
Yes.
I know they're state roads, but any idea as to whether either or both will be implemented and what timeframe?
So it all boils down to funding. There are design dollars that the state DOT has for looking at preliminary design for the Post Road Circle, and they've started to look at that design. One of the complicating factors with the Post Road Circle is that there are two very significant drainage pipes that run underneath the Post Road Circle, and those two drainage pipes are aging out. DOT will have to replace those. I think they've told us to the tune of $30 to $40 million just for the pipes.
For a while.
Without even looking at the roadway improvement for the circle. So our preliminary conversations with them have been whether they can up to, I'm gonna get this name wrong. It's not Beaumont. What's the name that begins with a B? Where the service station is, the Penfield Garage. Not Berwick.
Beaumont.
It's not Beaumont.
Bronson?
Not Bronson. Whatever that street is, they have talked about doing some intersection corrections up to that point and really having to unfortunately leave the circle project alone until they deal with that underground infrastructure issue that they have to deal with. We are in conversations with MetroCog as to whether or not there might be funding to implement any portion of the Black Rock Turnpike safety study. And so those conversations are ongoing.
And then the other question was having to do with the CMDA. Anything, now that that's been enacted and it's in place, are we working?
So one of the things that we have been discussing with CMDA is obviously Ash Creek Boulevard was designed for 2 million square feet of office. It really isn't a pedestrian or multimodal friendly roadway. And it's our roadway. That's a local roadway. We own it, we control it. And so we are building a neighborhood at Fairfield Black Rock Station, and it's not very pedestrian friendly. So we know that we have a bit of an obligation to look at making revisions to that. And that's something that we've discussed with CMDA in terms of, whether they can provide study dollars to look at how we would make revisions to that roadway to allow it easier for people to kind of walk, catch a train from Black Rock Turnpike to go to dinner in downtown, right? So, but it has to be friendly. Like, I think to the conversation tonight, like, it has to be friendly, it has to be accessible, it needs to feel safe. And we need to get we have a responsibility with Ash Creek Boulevard to do some of those things and to understand what that means. So I hate to say that it's another study, but it is another study to look at what those improvements could be and then to figure out what our funding sources could be to implement those. And if we time it right, the developer might be able to do some of those changes for us, at least for the portions of the property that affect their site. And then we can maybe work with CMDA for some of the others, but we have to have that study done first.
I just wanted to follow up on the CMDA because I was on the RTM when we passed it. And it was there was so much social media on it. So are we only using it for that little piece?
We are, because of the changes in due to PA 25-1, we could apply for downtown at this point because it was really a process issue that was kind of holding us up. You have to allow the reviews in a really, basically a summary review for some of your mixed use. That's what the statute says. And now with the changes in state law, downtown is going to be eligible. The question is, whether we do take it before the boards to have this conversation, whether there's incentive to do that, to allow us with funding mechanisms that help. So I think that's a future conversation that we can have.
Yeah. I don't think anybody was anticipating the newest one. There's been so many, 802, 5002, PA, whatever.
Yeah.
CMDA, it's a lot.
Okay.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. As Has the town commission any type of independent fiscal impact analysis of the pipeline of housing that's coming? Netting against projected tax revenue, any costs for police, fire, public works, or any other types of infrastructure? Because there's lots of talk about, oh, we can do this, we can do that, but, you know, I'm hearing from the police, they're gonna need more police officers and maybe a substation. I don't know how much a substation will cost. I hear from the fire that they definitely believe they need a lot more fire personnel to cover all these apartments and apparatus to get up that high.
They need a second ladder truck.
Exactly. So all of this comes, everyone likes to say there's no costs involved in it. There's lots of costs that are gonna be involved in it. I mean, we have to deal with them all the time. And do you guys prepare like is there any type of impact analysis of adding this many units of housing?
There is, there is, but it's old. We need to redo it.
Yeah, I know, we're saying something out of 2018, and we're now in like.
Totally agree.
Going in a fiscal year 2027.
We should refresh it.
How long does that study, how long did the 2018 study take to complete?
I bet it was only maybe a couple months for them to do that.
But
and who does that? Who talks to the police and fire about what numbers they're projecting that they're gonna need?
Well, in that case, we hired a consultant using a state grant, and they consulted, they talked to different departments to come up with those estimates of costs.
But the thing that's not in there that I think would be better, this is what I was saying earlier, the thing that's not in that, it's a good study, you should look at it. It's thoughtful, but it doesn't include like a new ladder truck. There's no capital expenses in it. And I don't think that's an explicit, they're very transparent about that.
Sure.
But I think it's a bigger undertaking and worthwhile doing to do sort of refresh the analysis that exists, but also pull in capital expenses. In the TOD, in the transit-oriented development plan that they came out with, there was only one scenario that had any kind of contemplated any capital spending, and that had to do with some road stuff. But I think we all sort of have the sense that, well, maybe there would be more. My biggest concern was education, but Emmeline's given a lot of pretty confident answers that it's just not like my worst case scenario isn't gonna come to pass. But yeah, I mean, whether it's a ladder or a bridge over the train tracks, it seems like there's probably gonna be some more stuff on the waterfall as a result of all this development. And I'm really glad you said it. I think it's super worthwhile to do this stuff. I think the only thing this group should be talking about is the fiscal impact. Everything else is outside of our.
Well, one of the impacts is, and we've been dealing with it and improving bonding and stuff, is for the east trunk line.
Yeah.
And the increased capacity because they know these buildings are coming. And I don't even know, based on all of these apartments we're talking about, whether we need to get them in again and said, even with the projected things that are coming up, is it a big enough capacity to be able to handle it?
They looked at that. They looked at that. And again, we're underserved based on where the study expected us to be, and they looked at sewer impacts and what our capacity was. And again, to Mark's.
2018.
Yes, they did.
There's a lot of projects here that are, that were never even, the idea was never even born.
No, but based on.
WCA will look at that also.
Yeah, but based on the units that they estimated, we haven't produced that many units. And what the capacity was within the system.
There is cost
So there
because
was-
we designed the system based on that increased capacity.
Well, I think we're fixing the system that, it's like fixing a leaky roof. Like, we had to fix it. Like, it was, our system was.
The I&I is kind of a really interesting thing because I ask about it all the time because they keep coming to us for millions and millions of dollars. And I keep asking them, what are the savings you have found so far with all the money we have given you? And they look at me like, what? I'm like, what are the savings? How much have you saved from going in the system? Well, we really don't know that. We're still exploring this in studies. No one's been able to show me that even a gallon has stopped going in there.
They're not done with the project, though.
Okay, I mean, but how much is it gonna cost? No one, like, they keep coming us for more and more money, and I'm not seeing anyone stopping the inflow into the system. Anywhere in town.
I think the I is, we can go, I mean, I don't want to go too far down without
fine.
having Michelle Gore here, but
Yep.
it's helping. But
Okay.
it's going to take a long time to finish these projects.
Okay.
And we want the I to be reduced just for the facility itself, which is aging. And the East Trunk Line, aside from new development, it's also serving half of Fairfield. And residential homes are also getting larger. So we're not doing that project just for the development that's happening around
Okay, I will,
Fairfield Metro.
all right, but there's definitely cost to.
There's definitely cost, and there's also new revenue. I mean,
On your analysis though, but are you, if I asked the first select person, are you like, do you like that idea, or you think it's impractical to just like refresh the fiscal impact study, but also bring in capital stuff? Or you think it's just, is that just too sort of speculative and?
I think that there are definitely going to be increased capital costs for police and fire. Not only as buildings get higher, you've heard that from the fire department. Some of the staffing needs for the fire department is just increased standards, best practices. So not adverse to it at all. And as we were talking about parking and, new improvements at the train station, what that would look like to support commercial development downtown. If we're hearing that parking and traffic is a concern right now, forget about adding any residential. It's sounding like you've got concerns about the current infrastructure. And if we're going to be looking at new capital expenditures outside of what we're doing right now on the 10-year waterfall, would absolutely be supportive of updating.
I think it's a great idea to refresh that study, to maybe broaden it, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but I think it will be helpful for what the last item on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, and then there's also additional costs in the fact that the influx of new residents, has the population increased over the last 5 years?
It has, we've got,
Okay. So-
it has.
And it's forcing us to have more wear and tear on our roads, to have to reconfigure roadways, to implement traffic calming measures with these toilet bowl puncher looking things, and to undertake more and more public work projects that are costing the taxpayers money. All of that is part of the entire thing.
Some of the population growth, university students are also counted in that. So there's been growth of the universities, which has, more people, but also positive impacts for our community as well. There's two sides of this discussion. So I think that just be cognizant of, there's increased expenses, but there's also increased tax revenue.
I'd like to know what the additional financial implications are for adding 1,700 people onto the metro site.
But I just do want to to say the point, if you look at that study, they were projecting more extensive development than we have experienced. And that study was positive. It was a better fiscal picture. It may not be a better lifestyle, it may not be a better aesthetic, but it was positive fiscally. So,
I'll tell you that whole project's been Mark's been there, I've been here the entire, it's been a complete failure, to be honest with you. The money that the town had to invest in the property, the lack of revenue that we've not gotten out of it, the amount that the state did to build a train station now that's really called Black Rock Station now. It's really a bridge.
I'm just getting at the question that I think we're both asking is we want to understand what's this actually going to cost the town. And the study that is old, which was projecting much more extensive development, came to the conclusion that it's actually going to be positive. And they were looking at things like how much do departments' costs increase when population increases. They were looking at these things. So I think we agree. I want to see the study updated, but I haven't seen anything in my preparation for this meeting, I haven't seen anything that suggests that we're gonna be like, oh, in the red because we've added 500 new units. It just,
Right.
that's not what the information, that's not what the
data.
data says.
Okay. Do we, on large complexes that are already built and occupied, such as the Anchorage, have we ever looked at what the actual fiscal result has been from those large sites? Tax
In terms of
revenue
tax revenue?
versus any type of school enrollment and services demanded?
There was a slide in my presentation, I think, including Anchorage.
Okay, but do we look at the numbers as opposed to what developers are saying after the fact, like to see whether it's working out? Because, let's put it this way, all these commercial properties, the whole commercial base just changed. Any commercial property in town's paying less money net right now because of the revaluation, because the residential units, residential homeowners have taken the burden of the revaluation. We're paying more taxes. We've all been affected by it.
By reval.
Yeah, by the reval, which moved a substantial tax burden onto the residential property holders.
But if you have more diversified housing, that could benefit the market. I mean,
I thought that was the point of trying to grow the commercial brand list to help relieve the tax burden.
Has it worked? I don't know whether it's really worked.
It's an ongoing project, right?
I don't know.
Have you seen positive grand list growth? Yes.
Yeah, but I've seen, those are considered commercial properties, these buildings, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I would consider them commercial assets, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Tax assessors were treated as such.
Okay, so I look at the commercial tax base and I see what happened in the valuation. I see that commercial properties went up 17%.
This one, 27.
17% in the last one. And the residential went up 64%. So what did that do? That just took a large number. Every commercial property owner that I know in town is really happy with their tax bill.
Yeah.
They went down. They're really happy. Residential, not so much, as you've probably read about. So, I don't know whether it's really helping or hurting, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I don't consider these apartment buildings to be a revenue positive thing, including traffic, including everything else like that.
If they weren't there, then there'd be more burden on the residential side.
No, we'd have less, we might need less services. We might need a smaller sewer system, you know, it might be.
We put a smaller sewer system because the projects over the last 5 years didn't happen.
I mean, the most shocking number, I think, of the meeting is that since 2018, only 566 were added. Is that right? That's that blew me away. I would have thought it was a much, much bigger number. I would have said 2,000, 3,000.
Do you guys have a list of that you could provide us?
Yep, we can.
Can you provide that?
Yeah.
Since 2018?
Yep, and it's, where we really track those numbers is when we look at the number of school kids. So we have the unit number, we have the number of school kids per unit. And so I'll provide that to you guys and then I'll have both of those things in there.
That'd be great.
Two birds, one stone.
Yep.
Mr. Rock raised a good point, and I used to do a fair amount of zoning in prior life. And I represented, during the restaurant renaissance, I represented a lot of the restaurants and getting some of the variances, to be quite honest with you. And these traffic studies, you know, it's so funny, these traffic studies. These traffic studies are done on a one-off basis. But as you do them, they really don't show that any of them will add traffic. They don't. No. But when you take 1,000 of these applications and you have all these applications saying that they won't add traffic, they do add traffic when there's 1,000 applications that have been granted. I'm not saying it's 1,000, but it's, as you know, hundreds of applications, hundreds and hundreds of applications. So they do have an impact, and they have had an impact on the downtown. And it's one of the things that's driving some of the traffic issues, not alone the apartments and the additional cars and the population growth, which is, can you find out what the population growth has been in the last 5 years? That'd be great. Like, what is do you know the total population right now?
67?
That's 65.
65.
65,
Okay.
I think it was probably 62 or 63.
like when, with the census. 61, I think, when, we get numbers from different sources, which is why.
I just made a lot of notes, but I don't want to hold this up anymore, so.
Great. Well, without any further questions.
Oh, can I ask?
Yeah.
I did have a question for Mark that I'd written down. And I think we might have briefly touched on it, and you told me that it was out of bounds because we'd be getting Mark at a later point in time.
Oh, yeah, at the time. Today
should
you have the floor.
So, the two universities, and obviously there's a slide in here and how that's one of the benefits of this town, that we have a highly educated population, and we have access to college students when they graduate, some stay here, whatever. But the economic benefit that we get from the two universities, we received, I think the board members received from Fairfield University.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've read it, I'm sure, correct? I found that a very compelling argument. What did you think of that as an economic development person? Because to me, I think we'd really be hurting if we didn't have those people driving the business that the universities bring in.
You're asking whether I think
Accurate?
economic impact?
Yeah. No, do you think that was an accurate document?
I think it largely captured what they believed in terms of the impact would be.
What they believe.
Yeah.
I'm asking your opinion on it.
I think there's always.
You think it was overblown?
I think, yeah.
Okay. In what way?
I don't have the report in front of me, but I would say that when we do economic impact analysis, you compare to other scenarios and perhaps also, as you've done, consider what those costs might be. And I'm not sure that they factored all that in, but I would say I absolutely agree with you that they have a significant economic impact on the town.
How often do they prepare that report?
That's the first one I'm aware of that they've prepared.
Sacred Heart doesn't.
comprehensively.
Sacred Heart
I think
doesn't.
Sacred Heart would be looking, there's the college, there's a consortium of college and universities that does prepare an economic impact analysis for all the in-state institutions. And so that information is not really new. And that's probably when I have looked at that in the past, and yes, it's a big number. Is it that big? We can all dispute whether there's everything that should be in it is taken into account. But I'm not going to dispute the fact that they have a significant economic impact on not just the town, but the region and state as a whole. So I think we're parsing, I didn't prepare it, so.
No, I found it very interesting. And I think personally, this is my own personal opinion, I think they felt like they needed to do it because I think they felt like they were being attacked by the previous administration. So they wanted to put that out there, and they should have. I think there's been a complete change in the way, and I will compliment the current First Selectwoman in your handling of the universities and your ideas that you've had for their students and doing other things down to the thing. And I don't see it's as adversarial as it was or should have been. But I'm happy the way that you've been working with them and trying to become more partners with them and find joint solutions. So I will compliment you on that.
Appreciate that. And I think that they give a positive economic impact to our community, educational impact to our community, recreational. We're very lucky to have them. They add to the vibrancy of downtown and supporting our local businesses. That said, I'm also cognizant of the fact that they also add more cars to our roads as well and strain our police force every weekend, added resources down there. Looking at our fire trucks, dorms are going up, multi-floor, that there's an expense that comes with that as well.
Yeah.
where both
We love the
sides
building permit though, money though, right?
True. Well, I mean,
That is true.
plus,
You know, they've saved us a number of years with large projects and updating their facility.
yeah,
And more on the horizon.
so.
It's like an arms race with the universities. You're not building, you're going out of business.
All right, we're good? All right, Mark, Emmeline, thank you both for your time preparing this for us and taking us through it. Really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you very much.
Just email that to you?
Send it to Jen Carpenter. You can copy me, but she'll put it on the site.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good night.
All right, so with that, we have one.
Myers, you got any more ice cream? Get any more ice cream I can stop by for later on? Between the ND and the ice cream, I'm like.
We have one more item on the agenda. This, I'm hoping will be quick. It's to review and discuss the 10-year capital plan and 5-year forecast processes. And just as in our backup, starting on page 31 of the online backup, there's a 3 or 4 page memo that I've written. The intention would be for me as the chair of the board to send to Christine and to Tom the board's view on what the town should be doing with respect to both the 10-year capital plan and I've added here a 5-year operating forecast.
There's no print up of it
What's that?
in the backup here? There's no print up.
Yeah, there is.
Look at the last.
Yeah, the last piece. So, yeah, it's a big draft on the top of it. So the point of this is, with the passing of the charter revision at the previous municipal election, the town now has to have a formal process to have this board approve a 10-year, or approve the 10-year capital plan.
Well, the fiscal year.
It says prepare and maintain, this is from the charter, prepare and maintain a 10-year capital plan and submit annually to the Board of Select Persons for review prior to submittal to the Board of Finance for its approval of such plan for the next fiscal year. So there's a little bit of interpretation there. I don't think it matters, honestly, because I think we can do it either way. But point is, before we get to our capital plan in September, the administration needs some guidance as to what process would be followed. So I've had conversations with Tom and Christine and Eli, who had to leave, unless he's on, but that's okay. So on page 2 of this memo, it just kind of outlines what the process would be. And what I've done here is listed the timing so that it applies in every year. The second column is the specific dates for this year, making sure that it fits, and the steps that it would go through. But basically, it's the same waterfall that they prepare every year, but these are the steps that it would follow. In mid-September, would present to the Board of Selectmen. Mid to late September, we have our workshop. And then in early October, we would actually have them, if there are any questions, open questions that come up during the workshop, they come back to us during our regular Board of Finance meeting in the first week in October. And then following that, we would actually vote on the 10-year capital plan. Now, my personal feeling is the intent is to actually review a 10-year capital plan and approve it. Now, fast forward a year, we're going to go through the same process and review another 10-year capital plan. So it's going to change. The only thing that's going to stick is the current fiscal year. So I personally feel like it really doesn't have a consequence either way, whether we're just voting to approve the year 1 of the 10-year presentation or to approve the whole thing. My view of the workshop is that we are looking at this over a 10-year period, looking at the buildup of debt service, how that kind of peaks. So I think it's relevant to bless the 10-year plan, even if it's only the first year that's sticky, if that makes sense. But I wanted to get input from this group as to whether you felt differently about that. And then once we vote to approve that, that does not remove or doesn't change the process to actually get actual projects approved and actual bonding approved. Those steps would still follow. The plan is just kind of, just like we do a budget, where you still approve funding for stuff, right? So, so this just memorializes and puts the plan together. So that's the first half of this document.
I have a
Yeah,
thought on
Tom,
that.
yeah.
I guess the way we looked at it is that although we're presenting a 10-year plan, the vote is on, it really would be for the fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year. And the concern is that as you move down the road a couple of 3 years, as the board looks at this,
Yeah.
when you're saying approve a 10-year plan, then the emphasis is going to be on the entire 10 years. And so that, means you're going to be putting a lot more content into those.
Yeah, and one of the things I had talked about in terms of points to know, I had said here that years 6 through 10 are understood to be placeholders, will lack the detail but should provide educated or best guesses, right? Years 2 through 5 should have a little bit more meat to it, but it's really year 1 that should basically come fully baked. So all these capital projects come to us, we get the 14 points, we've got all these estimates that go into it. All of that would be expected to occur for all of the projects in the upcoming fiscal year. So I don't have a strong view as to whether we're approving year 1 of a 10-year plan or if we're approving the 10-year plan. I'm open to discussion on it. I can see it going either way, but if I go back and read what's in the charter, prepare and maintain a 10-year capital plan and submit annually to the Board of Selectmen for review prior to submittal to the Board of Finance for its approval of such plan for the next fiscal year. So it's.
I mean, when we spoke, my thought in speaking with Tom and Eli and the capital projects team was that we would prepare a document similar to what the Board of Education presents for the upcoming year. All the capital, all the non-recurring, the 14 points, and that would be the document that you would be voting. Those numbers would be hard and fast that you'd be voting on. As backup for that, it would be in the context of the 10-year capital plan that we review every year as part of the capital planning summit. You would be approving that, that's the waterfall, but my worry is that those numbers, even year 3, they're gonna change.
Of course.
They change. It's a living and breathing document.
Yeah.
And approving 10 years out, you're not concerned that we're not going to give you the information you need to be making decisions on year 6, 5, even 3, quite honestly.
But when we go through that waterfall process, what we're looking at is the buildup of debt service in relation to a forecast of the operating budget and how much that debt service is in relation to the operating.
That's what I really think that we're voting on. I actually don't know what the background is on why they put this in the charter, but I think what we do with the capital planning workshop, what we have sort of singularly focused on is over this very long-term projection, are we within the parameters that we want to be in terms of debt load? And I guess, the charter does seem to suggest that you have to do a 10-year plan, but you'd be doing it every year.
Yeah.
So you'd really only be, basically all you're doing is voting in the meeting that we have.
Exactly. So once we fast forward a year and we go through the process the next time, that supersedes anything that was done the prior year. So I think we're fine either way. But the important takeaway in terms of the schedule is that come mid-October, we have our summit in mid to late September, but once we get to mid-October, we're actually going to have all of these projects and the bond resolutions in front of us for approval for the upcoming fiscal year. So we're going to commit to those projects early because that will then free up the capital projects group, Eli, to actually then start going out and doing this stuff way in advance.
So in October, we vote on everything that is scheduled for the fiscal year. It's gonna be
Yes.
a long meeting.
Yeah, well, no, these are spread out over multiple meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the whole point. Like we do the workshop, everyone, if we're have any open questions, it gets, those get addressed by our first meeting in October. And then if we vote on that and we approve it, then they go back, do the work, provide the documents for the 14 points, blah, 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 blah. And then we approve those, the bond resolutions come through, RTM approves that. And then by the end of October, all the capital approvals required will be done with all three bodies, right?
That's the plan, or hope.
So it will be much more efficient. So that's this one. And then,
So then there's no other bond resolutions we're gonna get in during the year?
unless it's unforecasted. Yeah, go ahead.
And Jim, you probably remember that the town was doing it this way, only it was later, it was February.
It's February, yeah.
And the Board of Ed was pushing their projects forward or into the fall.
Yeah.
Just because of timing and not being able to get roofs done in time for summer.
Kids and all that.
And all that. And the costing ended up being better because we were able to go out to bid earlier. Now that we're
Before
approving.
everybody else goes out.
Before everybody else is going out to bid.
Yeah.
But if the Board of Finance is gonna be approving a capital plan, $45 million. And the Board of Ed gets its projects approved, early on, they pretty much get the first shot at that money.
Yeah.
So it seems to be fair. that
Yeah.
Everything goes back to being approved
Yeah.
at the same time, and there's a real advantage just to getting these projects out to bid sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Especially since so much of the work was weather dependent.
Right. So the other half of this memo talks about a 5-year operating budget forecast, which the towns, you might know, I don't know that we've done this, certainly, I don't remember the town doing it. It's not a requirement of the charter, but when I was fortunate enough to join the calls with Moody's and S&P when they were talking about the ratings, both 8 rating agencies asked for 5-year forecasts, operating forecasts. We didn't have them. And so, to me, it was a natural, well, we kind of go through that process for the waterfall because we want to see how the capital debt service stacks up against our forecast of operating budgets. So really what we should be doing is developing a more robust 5-year forecast. That won't be binding, but it will allow, what I've written here is we approve our budget at the end of March. The RTM takes the budget, they do their work in April, and then it comes back to us the first week in May to set the mill rate. In that 4 or 5 week period, finance budget director, director of FP&A, excuse me, can pull together a forecast of year 2, 3, 4, 5. And we talked about breaking it into parts for cliff items that are kind of spiky, that won't be necessarily subject to just an assumed 3% increase rate, and debt service calculated independently, because it should work off of the previous waterfall analysis that was done. So we can build the administration, the finance department can build a 5-year forecast that they can bring back to us the night we vote on the mill rate, so that we at least have a chance to see it. And then when the administration goes in front of the credit agencies in mid-May, they can say, here's our 5-year forecast that this board has reviewed.
What
Are the, yeah, go ahead.
what about like the Board of Ed, for example? Are they gonna give us input for that?
That's the expectation, yeah, that if there were spike items, like cliff type items coming on or going off, that should be adjusted, but otherwise they should be able to use some type of run rate. And then the debt service wouldn't apply because that's just more broad. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually in line, this has come up with in the budget subcommittee
Yes.
meetings. You know, the idea of going 3 to 5 years out with
Some outlook.
forecast. 5 is kind of far, but
Credit ratings want 5.
that's what they want. I think, you know, it's something we've looked at.
And it won't be binding because we're going to go through our budget process for the next subsequent year too. So it's the same logic as the 10-year.
It's more directional. It's
But it's
aspirational.
directional, and we could say, whoa, what happened? This is more or less than what we thought. But yeah,
Less
just
detail too.
Yeah, much
And
less.
what do we put in there for contractual obligations? So how do we say the Board of Ed comes forward and says, we're gonna be, for the next 5 years, this is what we're estimating for salaries, because we're presuming that we're gonna pay the teachers X,
Yeah.
and they're not supposed to know that.
Well, it won't be.
How are we supposed to do that?
It
Put
won't be that
zero?
granular. It won't be that granular.
macro.
So it's very like, yeah,
Board of Ed.
yeah.
2% every year.
Yeah. If that's what we think is realistic, then, yeah. And we can have contingency in this as well. So if we don't want to disclose it on a certain line, but it doesn't have to be granular. What I'm most focused on is the bottom line number.
Okay.
Because if we're going from 360 million to 400 million or whatever the number is, it's really that's the number that is relevant to debt service. It's the bottom line number that's really the most important thing.
Tom, have you spoken to your counterparts in other towns? Do they do this? And have you seen what they've done?
I haven't, I'm not certain, but I believe Greenwich does, but I'm not certain. I believe
It'd
they
be good if you can get some examples of it to see like to what level they do it to.
I mean, we, regardless of what they do, it's not gonna, what we do will not be granular. It's gonna be macro.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but they might do a macro too, but it'd be interesting to see what the credit agencies are seeing from our counterpart, AAA's.
Yeah, we got.
You know, and you come back and explain that to us and say, this is what I'm seeing, and I don't think it should be this specific, or, hey, I think I like this one the best. What do you guys think? I don't know.
We've done them too. I mean, I've done 5-year plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, again, in this memo, for general timing, this work will be done in April, after we've approved our budget for the upcoming fiscal year, before we get the mill rate vote. But for this year, I've left the dates open for you and Ben to work through. I do think it would be great if we had this 5-year forecast as an input to the 10-year waterfall, because that's gonna go towards the whole coverage ratio and such. So to me, that gives you the rest of July, August, and half of September. So you get 2 months. So, but if you guys are okay with this conceptually, I'll take the draft stamp off this and send this to these guys tomorrow, and then we'll move forward.
All right.
Great. All right. Last item, no communications that I'm aware of, anything?
No.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? Amy, and seconded by Ken. Thank you. 10:29. 29.